ReZero, Side Story, Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 1.
Subaru, a bard is coming to the village. He's told an astounding word, and Natsuki Subaru repeats it again with an astonished look. Subaru turns around with a dust cloth in his hand, and just like always, was wearing his butler outfit in a style that wasn't very suitable for him, while awkwardly cleaning the window, because of his injuries, still remaining from the other day, the incident where the witch beasts surrounded Margrave Roswaal's mansion and Alam village. The closest place near it they abated the disturbance before it was possible to have any casualties, and he received a literal injury of honor. The confusion of the incident cleared up, and the mansion and the village were already back to their usual appearance. With most of Subaru's healing finished, he was working with all his might on chores in the mansion while rehabilitating at the moment. Emilia, yes, a bard. I heard Ram talking about it after she came back from the village. Have you come across a bard? What responded to Subaru's question was a voice that sounded like a refreshing silver bell melody. The long, silver hair of the owner of that voice sways. She had such a beautiful face that even artists wouldn't be able to bring themselves to draw it. However, her deep amethyst eyes were filled with so much curiosity that she looked entranced, and if you looked at her cheeks that reddened from her uncontrollable excitement, those strong emotions would overwrite the prettiness of her appearance. Subaru would also still show childish fascination every now and then. Subaru, EMT, Emilia, A. What did you say just now? The name of this girl who tilted her head in slight doubt at that nonsense was Emilia. She was a benefactor, and a person that was also beloved to Subaru. Subaru laughs at her innocent behavior and says, Subaru, well, I've never personally seen one myself. But Emilia Tan, seems like you're looking forward to it. Emilia, I don't just seem like it, I am looking forward to it. Bards are people who tell stories through things like singing and dancing, right? Surely you should know various things about them. Hey, Subaru, can you? Emilia has hope in her eyes, and she looks at Subaru as she put her hands together. She calls his name with a sweet voice, and looks up with a spoiled gesture. As if there would be a man out there who wouldn't give in to a girl as beautiful as Emilia making a request like that. Or at least, Subaru immediately gave in. Subaru, yes ma'am. After you clean up and ask for sensei's permission, that is. Emilia, yeah. Sorry for having you accompany me because of my selfish request. Subaru, it's okay. She's not expecting much with my chores while I'm in rehabilitation, so the date has priority. Emilia, oh, I see. We'll be going out with the two of us, so it'll be a date again, huh? Subaru looks at Emilia's smile, who didn't seem to notice the sinfulness of it, and held the dust cloth with the returned bucket and headed towards the mansion. In the window, he saw a view of the faraway village of Alam. Subaru, bard, A. When he said the word again, he felt like it gave off more feelings of a fantasy than he had imagined. He looked calm in front of Emilia, but there's no way his heart wasn't excited. A singing voice would roll up the people and the world cheerfully and melodiously, and it would start to spin a tale. Just from imagining it, it also excited Subaru's heart without him knowing it, as he walked alone in the corridor with a cheerful mood.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 2.
Well then, I will now sing. Please listen, The Dolphin Betrayed by the Sunset. It was a melody that was depressing with its melancholy and it seemed sad, but it flowed through the village's plaza like the rain of a day during rain season. What stood on the rough stage made up of only lumber in the middle of the plaza, was a form of what seemed to be an instrument between the guitar and the ukulele. It was a person playing a wooden, stringed instrument. The musical instrument with a geometrical pattern seemed to be bouncing in temperament, but perhaps exhibiting gloominess to this sort of extent was something that depended on the singer's technique. That was how impressive this gloomy atmosphere that wrapped up the village was to the villagers. They are moved by the very depressing melody and the lyrics of the piece, and the villagers that acted as the audience had emotionless, dead eyes. Considering the appearance of these old ladies that were breaking down and crying from what felt like the end of the world. Perhaps there was a possibility that they've never seen something this cruel, even with the unease with the witch beast incident. If it's this sad, then I'd rather die. I won't die. They won't let me die. In the midst of the song, the dolphin betrayed by her friend and fiancé was being protected by the setting sun, on top of the bridge where an important promise was exchanged before. This seemed to be the climax of the story, and it was choosing whether or not to drown itself. The singer played her musical instrument. It didn't even matter if she was singing enough for it to be called a song, she supported it with her gestures. The story was full of realism, and a world was developed. Tears that couldn't be handled appeared within the eyes of the audience that saw a trickle of tears go along those cheeks, and they too started to sob. It spits bubbles and sinks into the silent sea. Oh, dolphin. Oh, dolphin. It seemed that the dolphin boldly sunk into the riverbed. The breeze and the flowers that could do nothing but watch her sorrow simply grieve over her miserable death, and the act came to an end. Subaru, as if this could be a tune chosen for performance recitals, my God, Emilia, ooh-yay. Subaru finally couldn't take it anymore and gave a retort when there were still lingering sounds. The poet who sung the bad ending jumps up and down, surprising the audience, and the story world that had wrapped up the plaza crumbles. The villagers who were captured in the song's world come to their senses, and they look at each other. Wow, look at that. I cried a lot. Oh man, the tears come quickly when you get old. Dolphin, you are another version of myself. The poet girl is cute. Then, they all exchange their impressions unanimously while having tears in their eyes. And when they relayed their first impressions for a while, one of them looked back at Subaru, who had snuck to the row furthest to the back in an attempt to run away, and said, Petra, you are ruining the mood, Subaru Summer, and he got shouted at, which startled him so much that it made him jump.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 3.
Liliana, allow me to introduce myself. I am the bard of the flow. I'm called Liliana. The person who said that was this cute girl who bowed quickly and still had traces of childishness in her. She had eyes full of cheerfulness and curiosity, and yellow hair that seemed to reflect an aggressive personality. She had pigtails, and under her light cloak, she had dancer-like clothing that was decorated with ornaments that used nuts and animal bones. She was short, but her hands and legs were long, and her exposed skin had a healthy brown color. She was a girl that really did give off a feeling of a vagrant traveler. Subaru, well then, thank you for your politeness. My name is Natsuki Subaru. I am a tumultuous, luxurious and gorgeous legman. At the mansion you see at the other side of the road, I am an all-round star as a servant. Emilia, what? Ah, never mind. Hello. Nice to meet you. Subaru was being unkind with how he was greeting himself at his own pace, even when it was their first time meeting each other. Liliana pushes her doubtful look under a forced smile, being frantic as she tried to avoid hurting Subaru and Emilia's moods, who explained that they were people related to feudal lord. However, Liliana's precautions were smashed up at once by Emilia's next actions. Emilia, that song was really good. I might burst into tears any minute, so, being overcome with emotions, Emilia takes Liliana's hand at once and expresses herself. Liliana becomes surprised for a moment by Emilia, as she was agitated. She quickly becomes aware of how she had been praised and then smiles. Liliana, no. I am glad that you offered your kind attention too. I am still inexperienced, but just from you saying that. Huh? Liliana responded to Emilia with a smile, as Emilia acted amiably, but as soon as Liliana looked at her, she immediately became dumbfounded. Liliana had her mouth open in astonishment, and she stiffened up. Subaru and Emilia widened their eyes at that reaction, but Liliana still had a surprised look on her face. While having that look, she says, Liliana, are you a goddess, Emilia? Liliana, I I've never seen such a lovely person before. Wow, wow. This is what happens when you take care of your hair and skin? We really the same type of humans. Liliana jumped up and down at that spot, being moved by Emilia's beauty. Emilia became speechless from her exaggerating reaction, but Subaru was in complete agreement with Liliana's opinion. Emilia was a little too indifferent to her uncommon appearance. That was cute. Then, when Liliana suddenly stopped jumping, she raised her instrument and bowed. Liliana, I just came up with a good idea. Please listen. Oh, goddess. Liliana draws in a small amount of breath, and she picks up the rhythm while being at a halt. She starts to play a melodious tune while smoothly plucking the strings of her instrument. Liliana, so profound to the point of being entrancing, light like a gem, eyes with bluish-purple pyroxene in them. The flowy, silver hair of the moon's tears. Delicate looks that cause divine protection to swoop down onto the fingertips of doll makers. Unbeknowing of how her skin, similar to white snow that falls and piles up, tramples on others. Slightly long ears that. Subaru and Emilia. Liliana suddenly pauses her beautiful voice, who had been fluently expressing her feelings into a poem. Subaru saw the 3 changes of emotions in her golden eyes, from doubt to realization, and then surprise. She looks towards Emilia's ears and adds on words to the song she sang herself. Liliana, the length of her ears, her silver hair. No way, the witch of envy. Subaru, all right, stop. It was a nice song, but I have suspicions that it has been caught by copyright. The verdict will be brought up later after a strict inspection, and so we must humbly cut off relations with you and Emilia. Subaru stops Liliana from speaking at once and covers her mouth up to prevent careless words from coming out. However, the person who criticized Subaru's actions was none other than Emilia herself. Emilia gets joint-locked by Liliana, and Emilia pouts at Subaru, who held Liliana's shoulders. Emilia, I'm happy about Subaru worrying for me, but it's not okay to be rude to girls. Tisk tisk. Subaru, haven't heard, tisk tisk, nowadays. Or rather, even disregarding that, Emilia Tan. Emilia, it's fine. Even if you try to cover it up after she's noticed, it won't solve anything. Emilia gave an explanation without blame, and she did act dignified, but Subaru couldn't act like that. Her not saying anything and exposing herself to blame made him feel sick. Emilia was born between a human and an elf. In other words, she was a half-elf. There were various kinds of demi-humans mixed in this world, but discrimination against demi-human clans it seemed. There was an ingrained opinion of half-elves, and Emilia experienced days of hardship alone. That being said, there was no just cause for Subaru to continue restraining Liliana, seeing how Emilia had forgiven her. He reluctantly let go of the girl's body who was held by her wrists, elbows, shoulders, and arms. Liliana, pant my chest. My chest. Don't attack things necessary for my work. What are you doing to a young girl's body, maid-san? Subaru, I want to be a man that uses up the power he has and protects the things important to him. Also, I'm sorry to say this, but even with my experience, it's hasty to count you as the bottom for girls with soft fair skin. Young lady, it was a different world with a very high percentage of beautiful girls, but Liliana ranked among the least ladylike ladies, according to Subaru's inspection. Starting from the bottom, perhaps the first would be Beatrice, second would be Felt, and Liliana would be the winner for third place. Liliana, all right. On top of holding a girl by her joints, you've also hurt a girl's feelings. But, Liliana stood out in front of Emilia with her mouse-like agileness while feeling indignant towards Subaru's assessment of her. The short girl Liliana looks at Emilia, and her expression stiffens slightly. However, Liliana, not only are you noble in your beauty, but you're noble at heart. That moved me. Emilia, yeah? Really? Liliana, yes. I am sorry for my careless behavior earlier with my bad manners. If the maid hadn't restrained me, then I would have been eradicated by family and followers for my impoliteness. Subaru, You're the type to ruin yourself energetically, aren't you? Subaru was surprised by her energetic, all-out confession, but Liliana started to strum her instrument, cheerfully. Liliana, I may look explosively abundant with sensitivity, but when there's something in front of me that causes me to have an idea, I stop being patient. Thus, I will anxiously combine Emilia Summers' beauty, graciousness, and her various reasons for not being able to publicly talk about her race. Subaru, you sure are fresh, considering how I've never come across someone like you before. Liliana showed her necessary liveliness. Her noisiness wasn't strange, nor was it pleasant. This was because of her honest personality and her voice. Her beautiful voice that smoothly crept into people was natural. You could certainly say that being a bard was her calling, Subaru, or maybe her calling is forcing old people to buy things like filled futons and water purifiers. Liliana, what is this? I feel like those words just now gave off a cruel sort of feeling. Liliana overreacted to Subaru, who showed his admiration, although she did clearly ignore that. To the side of Subaru, him being dumbfounded along with his wariness having faded away, Emilia also smiled at the wild girl. Emilia, however, although I am happy that you praised me, I don't really think I am a beauty. Liliana, As a woman, I just had unforgiving feelings pop up inside of me. I've got it. Please, listen. Oh goddess, Subaru, shut up. But I do think that recognition of Emilia Tan needs to be corrected. Subaru and Liliana both give their denial, and Emilia tilted her head slightly with a look that made it seem as if she had said something unbelievable, appearing to be troubled.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 4.
Now that he thought about it, he did feel tormented by anxiety and tension in the morning when he was first called out to the dining hall. That's what Subaru thought of at the Roswaal residence's parlor as he tilted a cup of black tea. Emilia, what's wrong, Subaru? You're making a really weird look. Then, once he thought about it, Emilia called out to Subaru, her sitting to his side, as he had a bitter look because of the exceptionally dark flavor. Subaru, I thought a little bit about the past. I was just thinking about how I curled up too during my initial times at the mansion. Emilia, that's how it was? Didn't you grin boldly back then just like you do now? Subaru, when you put it like that, my suspiciousness increases, and that hurts. Subaru becomes astonished from the evaluation that had quite the difference between its subjectivity and objectivity. Emilia looks at Subaru, him kneading his cheeks into a dissatisfied look, and she put her finger on her lips. Emilia, yeah, I was kidding. I tried teasing you a little since it looked like you were in deep thought. Subaru, seriously? Well then you are EMA. Emilia, yeah. Also, you don't have to be that tense too, you know. Liliana. Emilia ignored Subaru's nonsense, and she called out to Liliana, who cowered at the front. Liliana curled up with a pale face as she looked up, saying "Oki," as if the liveliness she had at the village was gone. Subaru, what is this? You're being awfully nervous. What happened to your cheerfulness from earlier? Liliana, even if you'll say that, I'm nervous. An old country girl like me suddenly being invited to the feudal lord's mansion. Also, for it to be the Margrave's mansion. If I do something careless, Subaru, your family and your followers will burn not just your roots, but even the fields around it. Like dogs, that is. Subaru gives a gesture of chopping his neck at Liliana, who became nervous and started speaking with an accent. Liliana sees that gesture, her face becomes ghastly pale, and Emilia got angry as she hit his knee. Emilia, geez, Subaru, I'm sorry. I did not think it would have an instant effect on her. Subaru apologizes with a wry smile at Emilia, who pouted with her cheeks. That being said, Subaru did feel gratified with Liliana's behavior of acting quiet and meek, as he was manipulated at the village. Subaru and the others returned to Roswaal's mansion from Alam village, and were currently having a friendly chat at the parlor, which meant that they were spending time together with a bit of a heavy atmosphere. They had spare time from the mansion's master to meet Liliana, who was a visitor. In other words, this is why these three were on the couch facing each other. Subaru, Even so, did you see Ram's displeased face as she acted as an intermediary? It seemed as if her eyes were scorning us as burdens that brought in unnecessary trouble. Liliana, eek. I'm not invited after all. I need to run now. Emilia, no, come on, it's fine. Subaru wasn't threatening you either. Don't you feel sorry for Liliana, Subaru? I wasn't trying to scare her, I just told her the objective reality. It is true that I don't like the idea of Ram increasing Chee's work. After all, Ram was a maid of the mansion, and she adored Roswaal. She was a girl who had an improperly prideful attitude towards being a waiter, so she let out a blunt sigh when she was requested to convey a message to Roswaal for the Liliana issue. She was now talking with the master, while certainly feeling annoyed. Subaru, as of now, I don't know what type of infamy Roswaal is hearing about. She might even be telling him that a giant bard over 2 meters high with a hoarse voice is asking for an audience. Even Roswaal, someone who was well known for strange things to some extent, wouldn't see a suspicious person that might not be worth meeting. Thus, Liliana was pitiful with how she lost hope, but, Rem, you don't have to worry that much. Nay, summer will be fair. Nay, summer won't include arbitrary feelings when confirming Roswaal's intentions. After all, the person who negated Subaru's worries was this blue-haired girl carrying a tray that gave off steam. It was a beautiful girl wearing the very charming remodeled maid outfit that revealed her shoulders and back. It was Rem, the girl who entered the room, adds tea cakes with a graceful gesture, and she goes around pouring second servings of tea into the empty cups. Subaru sees Rem holding the teapot, and he held out his cup. Subaru, putting the sweets aside, I thought that serving tea was only Ram's job. Rem, nay, summer is always busy, after all. Also, I always want to prepare Subaru-kun's tea. I put in a lot of things into the tea, such as my feelings, and other things as well. Subaru, can't you just include the tea leaves and hot water? Please, I am begging you. When Subaru's cheeks twitched as he said extreme words, Rem said, too bad, pouting with her lips. Rems has always been like this towards Subaru ever since the Witchbeast incident was resolved. He was honestly happy with that expression of her deep affection, but Subaru was also a bit confused. As a part of male instincts, the people around him and he himself did not know that this was a young man's sad nature of not knowing about how this was a romantic period. Subaru, anyways, I've used tea and sweets as excuses to invite you to join in. The contract has expired, Rem, to use the delicious tea, sweets, and the cute maid as excuses. I'm blushing, Subaru, it's the truth, but you smoothly added on one more thing, didn't you? Subaru gives a quiet retort at Rem, who put her hands on her blushed cheeks. She accepts that, and Rem says this softly with a whisper while having an embarrassed smile. Rem, even so. I heard that it was just a bard, but why the mansion? Subaru, Emilia Tan was extremely interested. There's that, but the matter is a little more complicated. Somehow that girl broke through Emilia Tan's recognition inhibition. Rem squints slightly in response to Subaru's details that he said in a whisper. The recognition inhibition was a technical effect weaved into Emilia's robe that she wore so that people wouldn't notice her lineage, as she was a half-elf. If the person didn't have the power to break through that effect, or if they didn't have Emilia's approval, then the person could not recognize Emilia as Emilia. Rem, breaking through that effect. It's Roswaal Summer's knitted technique, so it's hard to imagine that being broken. Subaru, right? Which is why I couldn't leave it as is and brought her along, and then he used Ram's tea and Rem's tea cakes as pretext to bring her to the mansion. Liliana also quickly fell over with that pretext, even though she had been hesitant at first. He was really worried about her future. Anyways, Subaru thought about how he couldn't leave it as is and brought her back to the mansion. Rem, I understand. In other words, force her to shut up before she reveals anything, right? Subaru, you don't understand, and when you say that, it sounds like something serious. Rem, or, come on, Subaru-kun. Of course, I don't go that far. Rem stuck out her tongue with a cute smile saying just kidding, but it wasn't convincing because of various reasons. Though, those various reasons were only left at the back of his mind. Subaru, even then, the effect of Rem's tea cakes was outstanding. Now that he looked at it, even Liliana, someone who had been nervous earlier, went into a trance upon tasting the fragrant baked sweets. Rem's ready wit for making pastry stood out, although she was already versatile with housework. Subaru, let's see, I'll have one more. Yeah, it's super delicious after all. Rem's pastries are superb. Rem, thank you. I put in my body and soul for Subaru's sake. I put in everything I had to the point of me being fine with never making sweets again. Those are the kind of feelings I made them with. Subaru, you put in such determination as if it was like you were burning your soul, just for a casual moment like this. While confirming the flavor of Rem putting in everything she had, Subaru pulls back slightly upon thinking about how pastries were risking their lives too, and on the other hand, it seemed like Liliana also was able to relax. She leaned on the couch as she stroked her stomach. Liliana, Z's. Subaru, I still don't happen to have a heart big enough to overlook you dozing. Liliana, huh? I'm not sleeping. I am not sleeping. It was me planning to arrest assassins where I'd pretend to look like I was sleeping, and they'd get lured out after observing me. Emilia. That's not good. Someone is trying to get you. Liliana, see look. My naive angel has been fooled. Emilia, someone who didn't know how to doubt people, had been successfully tricked by Liliana, who talked fast. Perhaps Liliana was a girl that could only have extremely strong reactions or extremely weak reactions, as she wiped the drool that hung around her mouth. Rem, by the way, Mom, I have heard that you are a bard. Surprisingly enough, Rem was the one who said that and broadened the topic. The instrument that leaned against the sofa in response to Rem, who gazed at the lyre. Liliana hastily carried the instrument and raised her trembling voice nervously. Liliana, yes. I am sorry for being a reckless dream chaser that challenges the world with my lyre. Subaru, you really are someone that just goes with the flow. Liliana was acting so abasing of herself that it was more refreshing to see, but Rem clapped her hands, without caring about it. She had the same type of radiance in her blue eyes that Emilia had when she first heard her sing. Rem, well then, Mom, do you know a lot of famous stories? Liliana, yes. Leave it up to me. Liliana's eyes shine at Rem's question, and she plays the lyre. Liliana, I'm also a girl who lived independently for no less than 10 years like this by making a career out of playing the lyre. I have confidence in my songs that bring tears to people's eyes, exciting a bunch of people, swallowing them up into a swirl of madness. Subaru, hey wait. Living independently for 10 years? Just how old are you again? Liliana, I'll be turning 20 this year, but is there something wrong with that? Subaru, you're 20 with that appearance and that calmness? She had childish looks, and an immature chest, butt, and hips. He felt sorry for the exposing of her thin body, but he felt even more sorry now that he knew about her real age. Subaru, this isn't a time for a legal loli to be saying this and that. I saw something even more horrible. Liliana, yeah, be quiet. A person you like has a request. Also, Liliana pushes aside Subaru, him being busy with being moved while feeling pity, and stares back at Rem's look of expectation. She picks up her lyre and took a pose of having one leg on the sofa. Liliana, all right, I will take any request. What shall I do? One of the masterpieces. For example, speaking of immortal, famous poems, the Sword Demon Love Poem sounds good. Subaru, hey, that sounds like a disturbing title. Liliana, what are you saying? The Sword Demon Love Poem is a famous poem that is passed down through singing not just in Lagunica, but other various countries too. It's a story that makes a lot of girls fret as they want to feel the same romance as the awkward but honest military man, and then they cave in. Subaru, is that so? Liliana, yes, absolutely. The very last part in particular is one that I cannot sing without tears. The People that see the scene become fascinated by everything where the sword demon crosses swords with his lover and the weapons unfold. Subaru, isn't that lovers crossing swords with each other? It was a summary, but he could only think of it to be brutal. There was literature back in his original world where people would kill each other from love, but that was out of his scope to follow up. As for Subaru, it was a title that simply gave only that sort of impression. But, Rem, what are you saying, Subaru-kun? The Sword Demon Love Poem is a famous poem that represents Lagunica. I've also heard of it over and over. Subaru, seriously? Is that true? Emilia Tan, do you cave into it too, Emilia? Sorry, I don't really know much about it. I might not be able to meet your expectations, Subaru. No, your response is fine. Emilia Tan's response is just what I expected, or rather, the unexpected trend of Rem's tastes was becoming so clear that he was surprised. Liliana puts the three's noisiness aside, and while seeming to be looking up a song book in her head, she, continuing, Liliana, as for other ones, there's The Blue Lightning of Wallachia, and The Figure of the Sword Hills, Hero. Also, can't forget the classic example of success, one that represents the founding of Kararagai's might, Hoshin of the Wilderness. Subaru, there's a lot of them. Nevertheless, don't a lot of the songs involve lineage of great men? Or, did you gather only those type of songs according to your tastes? Liliana, I do have my own tastes, but as you'd expect, the general public likes the ones about heroic tales and lives of great men. They are brilliant stories that cause people to have aspirations. I take it a step further from there, as I want to pass them down through songs. Liliana's cheeks blush as if in embarrassment, and she reveals one end of the purpose of her journey to Subaru and the others. Subaru shook his head, indicating that he had no intentions to make fun of her attitude. Subaru, that's awesome. Deciding on what you want to do at that age. Wait, you said you were 20, Liliana, you're talking in a prickly way, but do you have a problem or something with me being 20? If you get too persistent, then you can go to court, and I'll go too. Subaru, where would a court be in this world? Was it a place that held things similar to trials? Subaru didn't know, being someone who was poorly informed on this world. Rem, so mom, is spreading those songs the goal of your journey? Liliana, no, that's not the only goal. Of course, I do think spreading the songs is a mission of mine as well, but I have a more rooted goal myself. That is, Liliana answered Rem's question with a face that indicated the renewal of her mood. However, she was interrupted before she could take the opportunity to answer. That was because, Ram, sorry for interrupting in the middle of your chat. They hear a knock, and a lone maid that pushed the door open on the other side bowed her head politely. Her appearance made Rem and her look like two peas in a pod, and the girl who squinted with the light red eyes under her pink hair. Ram lifted her face, and said, Ram, thanks for your patience. Master Roswaal Summer will be seeing the guest. That's how she expressed her message, with a manner of welcoming the honored guest.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 5.
Roswaal, I am the owner of this mansion, the Margrave of the Kingdom of Lagunica, Roswaal L. Mathers. Liliana, he sits down at the chair up front. Liliana stiffened up without saying anything in front of the person who introduced himself. He sympathizes with her behavior, judging it as understandable with a side glance. He's been introduced to people like the Margrave, along with nobles of high positions, without having mentally prepared for it. Out of all people it could have been, to make matters worse, this was a person who was so intimidating with a sense of lifelessness he had. And, Subaru, I didn't think we'd meet a pervert painted in white clown makeup. Ram, Barusu. I will not forgive disrespecting Roswaal Summer. I'll twist and cut your thing off. Subaru, you've also made the same offensive of noticing Chi's current look, and what exactly are you going to cut off? Ram, I wonder what. The person staring at Subaru to her side was this girl who completely lost her previous politeness. Ram, Roswaal holds back Ram from her side, and he calmly crosses his legs on the leather couch. As his distinguished standing and title were mixed with those strange habits and costume, throwing initial impressions down the drain in very small pieces. People thought highly of him as a feudal lord even in an appearance like this, so they'd suffer in the gap between the reputation he had in the territory and the real thing they'd witness. Roswaal, just as expected, seeing this new person's surprised face is the greatest joy. I like Subaru-kun's kind of reaction too, but this sort of reaction really is the best. Right, Subaru-kun? Subaru, can you not imply that I'm an accomplice in toying with people's hearts while enjoying it? I only have a little bit of those types of poor characteristics. If he had to say something about it, he did feel an indescribable pleasant feeling whenever he got on other people's nerves. From an outsider's point of view, Roswaal was much the same as Subaru. Considering how each of them thought they were better than one another, they both really were making themselves hopeless. Anyhow, Liliana, I am extremely humbled and delighted that you've granted me an audience. I am the bard, Liliana. I am honored to meet you, Margrave Summer. Roswaal, splendid, splendid. If you're going to speak in this situation while shaking that much, then there's reason in meeting with you. I am famous for being tolerant, so relax. He was blowing his own horn, but Roswaal's words were not lies. If Roswaal was someone that held the temper of a villainous noble of a work, then people like Subaru would be dismissed the first day. Emilia, I heard that a bard was coming, and then I met Liliana. This girl says that she's looking for tons of rare stories, so I was thinking that maybe Roswaal would be able to help. Roswaal, I see. If Emilia Summer has that much expectation in me, then I have no choice but to show what I have up my sleeve. Roswaal gives a faint smile, creaks the back of the chair, and crosses his arms. Closing his eyes to go into deep thought, after a few seconds, he looks at Liliana with one eye with his yellow eye. Liliana gets put in the spotlight with that questionable look as she sits next to Emilia, and she starts to shake. Roswaal, you don't have to be frightened like Tar. I am on your side. Seeing that Emilia Summer has decided to be on your side, I'm also putting in efforts to do the same. Liliana, why yes. Thank you, Roswaal, however, Bard. Bard, right. Geez, this is wonderful timing. Roswaal deepens his smile at Liliana as she cowered in fear. For some reason or another, Subaru had a bad feeling while seeing his scarlet lips turn into a smile. This was because he could see nothing but Roswaal planning something from that smile of his. Roswaal, you said your name was Liliana, right? This is Emilia Summer's request. I care about satisfying your wish. This is when I'd like to hear a little more details. Liliana, when you say details, what should I talk about? Roswaal, let's see. How about the goal of your journey? Frankly, tell us about the goal itself. In response to Roswaal's tone lowering slightly, Liliana's facial expression changed, who had been stiffening up until now. And then Liliana connected that change with an expression she'd never shown before. Liliana closes her eyes just once, and when she opened them once more, she looked straight at Roswaal. Liliana, I am on a journey to seek newer legends in this world. In front of the leading domestic powerful person's look, he saw Liliana's unwavering determination in her eyes. The words that she said, the sound of those words, newer legends, made Subaru's heart tremble. Subaru was a man. There's no way the power those words held wouldn't cause his chest to fire up. Emilia, newer legends. Liliana, yes, that's right. I am looking for those, and I'm on a journey to sing them. Liliana had devilishness in her voice. It was devilishness that sent feelings directly into the hearts that listened to it. Then the person who had whispered quietly, Emilia, nodded her head as if it touched her inside. She picks up the instrument that was to her side and makes a sound with it. Liliana, we bards are beings who live and turn stories into songs. The songs permeate into the audience's hearts, and they etch into the soul of the one listenings about a certain past. About history, the song that passes down for a long time, so long, has power. This means that the poet who made the song still has his or her remnants remaining in the world, even after death. Liliana continues to speak in a bright voice. Nobody could interrupt her. Liliana, We can't leave something tangible behind. Our instincts won't even let us settle down while not making things, not knowing letters. We wander the world with these feet, sing songs at the places we arrive at, and if we're able to pass the song into someone's heart, we search for another place and begin walking again. And if at some point we arrive at empty wilderness, our instrument decays as a pillow. That's the type of people we are. There was power in her voice, words, eyes, and gestures. It was just like when she sung, Liliana, since we are beings that can only leave things in people's hearts, not being able to leave something of form, we want to create something that will continue to remain in everyone's hearts. We want proof that we certainly lived, a proof that has our souls carved into history. That is the only honor we wish for. If we were to want something out of this, there wasn't music, but the words of the girl who told her will were comparable to it, and they etched within Subaru. Liliana had such an established view of life that it was touching. Hearing that speech, Subaru could not let out a word, and it was the same with everyone else in the room. They probably judged that she was being obstinate and excessively self-righteous too. However, doing that would mean denying the way of life bards had, which was the same as hers. Subaru still lacked a certain something in order to do that. Therefore, Subaru was not qualified to evaluate Liliana's determination. Roswaal, I see. So that's why you want new legends. The voice that responded to Liliana's determination in this period of silence was Roswaal's, the man who had the most experience with coming across determination out of all these people. Nods at her readiness. Liliana also straightened her back to show admiration for Roswaal's nod. Liliana, vivid legends history that continues to remain in everyone's hearts strongly for a long time. Passing down existing songs already is a prideful way of life as a bard. However, if I could, I would like to be the first singer that sings a song that remains in everyone's hearts. I want to sing and pass down the newest, freshest history in this world with my throat, with my tongue. That is my wish, Roswaal. That is why I want the newest legends, Liliana said. The first page of history that nobody sings about and knows about yet, but is still etched into the world. That's why this girl wished to accomplish singing, despite knowing that what awaited her would be her last moment of decaying in the wilderness, as she continued along the journey. Roswaal, that enthusiasm is splendid. However, what kind of legends are you looking for? Chasing things without form is the same as grabbing onto the clouds, after all. You might even miss the things you desire, unless you have a definite form inside yourself. Liliana, if possible, I want a heroic tale. Roswaal, a heroic tale. Roswaal asked a question. Liliana answered. Emilia admired it, the meaning of those three's reaction and the power of the sound of the words heroic tale also fascinated Subaru. Heroic tale, those definitely were words that excited people and had the power to cause anyone to have wild enthusiasm. Even in his original world, many of the names left in history were heroes that rendered famous, distinguished services in war. Heroic tales were things that had the power to captivate anyone's heart in any world during any time period. Emilia, then Liliana wants to know new stories of heroes? Liliana, well, it's not that simple coming up with new heroes in this current age. There may have been a place for development of a hero several hundred years earlier when witches were rampant and the world was full of threats. In this world with peace, even if it's only apparent peace, a new hero would be there was no room for a hero to be born precisely because it was a peaceful age. An age without a hero was also an age when a hero wouldn't be necessary. It seemed that Liliana also understood that, but she stifled her emotions in response to that helpless matter. However, Liliana, interesting, it was a slight murmur, but it reached everyone's eardrums. But Subaru expressed confusion, since he could not understand the meaning of that murmur. Being looked at everyone, Roswaal opens his differently colored eyes widely and laughed. Roswaal, a bard has come here like this, seeking a not yet known heroic tale. How should I describe this flow of events that is like fate, other than saying it's amusing? Wait, I can't, this is amusing. Emilia, wait, Roswaal. What are you saying? Everyone is bothered, including Liliana. Along with myself. Don't just have understanding by yourself, give a proper explanation. When Emilia drew closer to Roswaal, him looking like he was enjoying himself, he looked at that beautiful face and says, "Roswaal, easy to do, Emilia Summer. I will fulfill Miss Liliana's wish, Emilia, A." Then does Roswaal have an idea of a new heroic tale? Roswaal, of course I do. Also, it's related to Emilia Summer too. Emilia, I'm related to it. Roswaal gives a profound smile at Emilia, who had a look of being completely clueless. Subaru suddenly understood Roswaal's intent, as he looked at that expression, being across from Emilia. If his prediction was correct, then that sure was a new legend. Liliana, you know a new hero? If so, then please let me hear about it. Roswaal, I will newt. Liliana, Muin. Roswaal mercilessly knocks down Liliana, who was in high spirits after hearing that the goal of her journey would come true. Emilia takes place of Liliana, her letting out a shriek like a squashed frog, and she glares at Roswaal. Emilia, Roswaal, don't make such a frightening look. It ruins your beautiful face. Also, nothing about this is me being malicious. Do I seem like that kind of a bad guy to you, Emilia? I'm doubting if it'd actually be weird for you and Subaru to do things like that. Subaru, that's an impassioned harmful rumor. In response to Subaru, him getting hit by a stray bullet, Emilia says, is it not like that? As a follow-up in a panic. In front of that follow-up, Liliana looks up at Roswaal once again, still being crushed, and says, Liliana, then. What can I do to have you tell me about it? Roswaal, this new legend, it's not something we can rashly talk about either. Thoas, we must make sure that you are a person we can trust. Liliana, what do I have to do? Why you can't have my hands, but if it's just my toes, then I can offer them as an oath. Subaru, calm down. Also, take more care of your own body, young woman. Subaru calms down Liliana, who started to talk about which muscles would be acceptable and unacceptable to give, and he sighed. It sure was difficult to make a differentiation between the title flow bard and someone who had no fixed address and no occupation. It was comparable to the suspiciousness of Subaru's lineage, as he was someone who was summoned into a different world and didn't have a family register. Anyhow, Roswaal had a sound argument. If Roswaal's plan was exactly what Subaru was thinking of, then they couldn't rashly get Liliana involved. Liliana drops her shoulders. It was too ironic how being a bard that goes with the flow was hindering the reason to act as a bard who goes with the flow. Roswaal, so, is why we first need time for ascertainment. Let's see what we could do. How about we allow you to stay at the mansion for a few days? If we're able to see you as a trustable person during that time, then I'll reveal what I know about heroic tales. Liliana, perhaps this was her reaching the light at the end of the tunnel. Surely that would be how you'd describe Liliana's current mental state. That is what Subaru thought, while looking at Liliana, who had hope within her eyes despite being pushed into the tunnel by Roswaal. Liliana, okay. I'm also a woman. If you'll compromise that much, what kind of bard would I be if I wasn't on board with it? Come at me with what you got. Come at me. Seeing this girl being this easily manipulated in the palm of his hand by a carrot and stick made him vaguely think about if she had talent as a dancer.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 6.
Liliana, oops. Did I perhaps just get manipulated? Is it just my imagination? Subaru, it's more something you brought upon yourself, rather than your imagination. Subaru points out Liliana's simple-mindedness while they walked the distance to get to the Alam village together. When he did, she makes a look indicative of being very hurt and says, Liliana, how cruel of you to say that. This isn't the behavior you should have towards a dejected girl that has just noticed that she got fooled and manipulated. Don't you think? Don't you think so? Wrong, ma'am. Subaru-kun is always lovely. Liliana, I have no way to express my anger towards that blind reply. The person who turned down Liliana Her half-crying was Rem, who was accompanying the two of them. While looking at Liliana as she shook and fought alone, Subaru let out a sigh, as if thinking that it would be boring for a while. Liliana successfully got caught in Roswaal's tricks, and it was decided that she'd be observed in the mansion. They were now on their way towards Alam village to get the luggage she left behind. Subaru and Rem appeared to be her helpers, but they actually had the role of supervising Liliana to make sure she wouldn't escape. In actuality, Subaru was warned by Roswaal to not let Liliana out of his sight, and Rem was this unreliable person's backup. Neither Subaru nor Liliana was trusted. That being said, in truth, it was actually just Subaru reading too much into it, and Rem respecting her intentions. Subaru, but Roschi is boorish. We don't know what he's aiming for either, after all. Liliana, but can Mr. Maid imagine what the master's idea is? Subaru, roughly. However, I won't speak about it for the same reasons Roschi has. He and I have the same opinion, although it irritates me. Liliana, Muguafu. Even though Subaru spoke out, it was a failure, and Liliana let out a scream that sounded similar to one of a peculiar animal. There were points where he should have felt sympathy for this girl's circumstances, who had her journey's goal in front of her and still couldn't see the full picture very well. Subaru, in reality, etching your name into history isn't a simple task. If we look into history from now, for things like heroes and all that, we can't learn about them intuitively. Liliana, I agree. It's very difficult. I couldn't be any happier if I found a hero whose name hasn't even shown up in the world yet and put their traces into a song. Although it would be a different matter if we had a method to look into the future. Subaru, as if a method like that exists? Stupid. Liliana, why are you overreacting that much? In some sense, it would be correct to call return by death something that was similar to being able to foresee the future. The conversation becomes blurry because of his own peculiarity, and Liliana turned towards Subaru with a doubtful look, him being disturbed. However, Rem interrupts Subaru and Liliana's moment. Rem claps her hands with a smile and says, Rem, Mom, I have good news for you. The truth is that I know a new legend. Liliana, Ah, really? Liliana comes across unexpected good news, and her look becomes weird as she had both surprise and joy. Considering how Rem had been friendly until now, there was credibility in her line of saying that she had an idea. However, on the other hand, the person who stayed silent and didn't overlook it was Subaru. If Rem's idea was Roswaal's secret details, then it was still too early to tell Liliana about it. Subaru's worries were put aside, and Rem pointed to the side with a face full of confidence. Rem, it's Subaru-kun. Liliana/Subaru, Rem, it's the newest legend. And it's a hero whose name will rise up, Subaru-kun. Subaru and Liliana's dumbfounded voices overlap, and Rem supports Subaru to pile onto that. Subaru forgets to ask a joke. As a response to the excessively confident recommendation, Rem, it's Subaru-kun. It was hard to say if Rem was being serious or if she was trying to deceive them, as she presses for an answer. But at the very least, it seemed like a conclusion appeared inside of Liliana. She compares Subaru and Rem's face and says, Liliana, I've got it. Please listen. A new legend, skillful playboy. Subaru, shut up. Subaru scolds Liliana, her not even acting like she believed in him, and he lets out a deep sigh. The feudal lord's attendant male servant that sensed the disaster that would happen in the village before anything happened, the person who risked his life to stop the witch beasts from causing damage, the person that protected the citizens' safety and trust. Who would believe in that guy? Such blasphemy. Rem, I was serious. Too bad you won't believe me. Rem feels discouraged, hanging her head, and she really did look disappointed, so Subaru started to feel sorry. Subaru was confident that he wasn't great enough as a man to be rewarded with that much pure trust. The ability to return by death was Subaru's unique last bit of hope in this different world. However, even when he had that power, there were many times when Subaru couldn't save the swirl of tragedies at the village and the mansion. If it was someone else, that person would do a better job. That type of evaluation of himself was rooted within him. Subaru, no matter how I die, the pain is the same. Even if I could save and reload more easily, heaven would punish me. It was an ability with many restrictions that had death as an absolute trigger for activation. He couldn't welcome it with both hands either because it wasn't something he wished for. He actually wanted to complain about the existence of this paranormal power he had been given, more than he wanted to show his thanks for it. That was when the mood suddenly changed. Rem, Subaru-kun. Rem calls out to Subaru with a low, cautious voice, and after she reached out, the course of the situation was interrupted. The sound of the seriousness in Rem's voice caused Subaru to immediately come back to reality after he had been in deep thought. And then, he clearly saw why Rem stopped him. Subaru, who are these people? Before Subaru's eyes, who whispered, there were figures of 4 people that blocked the road to the village. They were clearly suspicious people. They were completely covered in white clothing. Their faces, the length of their hands and legs, and their builds were concealed, completely burying their lineage in white. They had white hoods, white masks, and white costumes. They were entirely white, from head to toe. Subaru, to think I'd see the day when I'd come across perverts other than Roswaal like this. Subaru tells a joke and scans his surroundings. The eccentric clothing catches his eyes. He couldn't commence an independent surprise attack for now. If that was the case, then it was unlikely that the mere itinerant entertainer would do so either, considering how she stayed silent and stood in his way. Subaru, if you don't know the road, trace your footsteps. The globally common term for ground with no maintained grass is road. By the way, the feudal lord's mansion is behind me, and a small village is at the front, but, ? Subaru, I guess you guys aren't lost children that want to hear about the road after all. Subaru acts provocative. The edge of their knives flicker at the end of the white-clothed people's sleeves. They put their specialized weapons for specific times into their hands, and the white-clothed people, sliding towards him, cause Subaru to gulp. The 4 people swing up their knives towards Subaru and the others without even a warning and, Rem, I don't know who you people are, but I judge that you all have hostile intentions. The faces of the white-clothed people that were at the front receive a violent punch from Rem's fist, pushing them upward. Her rough fist hitting their bodies makes a sound, and the men sent flying into the opposite direction land on the ground with their heads tumbling down. Their limbs are made limp, and they saw that the masks on their upwards-facing heads were becoming red. Subaru sees that ridiculously gruesome state and says, wow, that looks painful, honestly letting out his impression that he had. Once he looked, the white-clothed people that were silent until now let out their voices in dumbfoundment. They look at their comrades that were sent flying, and they quickly started to feel the human kindness in the figure that stood upright. Although that would have no effect at all on the event. That would happen from this point on. Rem, I lost my weapon the other day at the forest, so until I get a replacement, I'll fight you empty-handed. Got a problem with that? Lost property in the forest was a cute way of saying it, but the thing she lost was her morning star, which was a brutal thing that had thorns on it. Rem's white slender hands that liked to use those as her specialized weapon were also beautiful but dangerous weapons that sent those men flying just a moment ago. Rem put up her hands, and the white-clothed people immediately conspire with each other in response to the girl who showed those dangerous weapons. Retreat. The men slip away to retreat just like when they were nearing them, and they carried their unconscious comrades, quickly withdrawing from the area. Rem kept an eye on the men that came into the side forest, and tried to run, but once she saw that not a trace of them was left, she lost the strength in her shoulders. Rem, I was a little anxious. I'm not sure if I'll be able to protect Subaru-kun empty-handedly when we come across people like that. After all, Subaru, you say that you were anxious, but that was a serious, good straight right. Rem, Subaru-kun, you're making me blush with how you're praising me that much. Subaru nods at Rem, who put her hands on her blushed cheeks, and he looks at the forest that the white-clothed people ran from, although they didn't look like mere thieves. Subaru, what do you think that was about? Maybe it was disturbance related to Emilia or something. Rem, that's a possibility, but Roswaal Summer is also someone that doesn't have many enemies. If he restrains himself that much, then I don't think he'd get frequent enemies, but it's a possibility. Subaru, seriously? I'm a little worried about my workplace's safety. Also, while getting cold feet from Rem's response, Subaru finally glares at the side. He saw a girl that kept her silence until now, and she had just stealthily turned her back. Subaru grabs her shoulder from the back, and while putting on the friendliest smile he was capable of, he says, "Subaru, what you doing, trying to run off?" Liliana-shan, Liliana, eek. Sorry. I apologize. I'm sorry, so please don't make that angry look. Subaru, I don't look angry. It's a smile of a smile that's trying to loosen its tension. Take a good look, Liliana, eek. Liliana continued to be frightened by Subaru's full-throttle smile. That reaction astonishes Subaru, but Rem takes over Liliana for him as she patted her back like she was comforting a puppy. Rem, don't worry, Subaru-kun isn't scary. It's just that his eyes are a little more lovely than others. Liliana, that's a personal opinion, but I'm fine. I've calmed down, yes, Subaru, I have some subtle feelings about that. But whatever. Anyways, why did you try to run? I think this would be unlikely, but are you perhaps an accomplice of those white-clothed people, and a comrade that's trying to disturb Emilia's royal selection? Was she someone that got close to Subaru and the others with that goal? The moment he tried to ask that, Liliana prostrated herself. Liliana, I'm sorry. But, I am not a bad person. It's just that those people have always been trying to get me. I tried and tried not to think, man, I want to do something about this. Oh yeah, how about I get the mansion people to help me? Subaru listens to Liliana explain herself, as she prostrated herself, and it made him goggle in astonishment, and seeing that franticness made him erase the possibility of her being a threatful spy. Subaru, you're telling me that when you said assassins were trying to get you while you were dozing off at the mansion, that actually was true? Subaru could do nothing but be troubled and groan in response to feeling another problem popping up.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 7.
Subaru, and so yeah, Liliana got chased by some unfamiliar people. Subaru finishes his report, and he sinks deep into the couch. They returned and were at the Roswaal residence's office. 4 people, including Subaru, were in the room. Subaru points at Rem, who was sitting next to him, and he said, "Subaru, frankly, Rem being there saved us. I hate to admit it, but if it was just me and Liliana, then we would have gotten killed." Rem, yes. Thankfully I was there, too. Though, I would have been more useful if I had my iron flail. Subaru, if you did, then they would have become forest fertilizer. Yeah, I thought it was graceful and cute. Subaru's heart calmed down, having evaded a massacre. The men that got knocked out by Rem, who was smiling, surely didn't expect to almost get beaten to death by a cute maid. Anyone would understand those feelings. Ram, so, is the bard you were talking about in the guest room? Subaru, yeah, with Emilia Tan, that is. She is there under the pretext of guaranteeing her safety, but it'd be problematic if we pressured her awkwardly and made her run away. That's why Emilia Tan's suited for the job, since she knows nothing. Ram, I see. It seems you understand why Roswaal Summer wants to keep that poet here. Ram gives an acknowledging gesture with her chin, and she pierced Subaru with a cold look. Subaru responds to that look by shrugging his shoulders. Subaru, he wants to make Liliana have a position of something like a news spreader for Emilia Tan during the royal election, right? Liliana wants to create a new heroic song with her own hands. She seems perfect for a success story of a country's new king. Ram, that was some quick understanding for someone like Barusu. My suspicion of you having a hollow pumpkin from the neck up has been cleared. Subaru, have you been trying to talk about a jack-o'-lantern or something? Setting Ram's usual assessments aside, Roswaal's intentions were probably something like that. This was a world where things like TV and newspapers to communicate information to the general public were non-existent. The influence of a bard going to various places conveying things such as history and events through song was something definitely far beyond the capabilities of Subaru's imagination. In regard to the royal selection too, Liliana would be a big help to Emilia with her songs. Roswaal, Subaru's also quick on the uptake. My plan is exactly what you said. Although, I plan to keep an accurate balance between the merits and demerits. Subaru, merits and demerits. Subaru felt suspicious with Roswaal giving a pleased answer while chuckling. Seeing Subaru's reaction, Rem takes Roswaal's spot, and while facing down she says, Rem, I hate to point this out, but Emilia Summer is a half-elf, after all. You cannot deny the possibility of a normal poet using that as a reason to decline the proposal. For that point, Liliana Summer seems to be friendly with Emilia Summer, so I figure she might accept the proposal, depending on the conditions. Subaru, so a plan in which we force the responsibility for trouble that can't be resolved alone onto someone else and make it feel like an undeniable proposal, too. Did I just make a really evil look? Ram, it was your usual evil person face. Rem, it was as lovely as usual. Subaru curls his lips at the evilness of Roswaal's personality while receiving the sisters' contrasting assessments. On top of his crafty speaking that got Liliana to stay at the mansion, he really was a smooth talker with his cunningness. When he glared at him to criticize him slightly, he waved his hand with a full smile, and Subaru sighed. Subaru, anyhow, I guess our current aim is to solve the problem while paying attention to Liliana's surroundings. It really sucks how we let our attackers get away. If we caught even one of them, Ram, if only you broke 5 to 60 of their bones, made them throw up as much as possible, and killed them. Subaru, they wouldn't even be able to spit out blood anymore if they got harmed that much. Take it easy on them. The fact that he couldn't affirm it as a joke showed just how terrifying Ram's loyalty was. Subaru, I am careful myself, but if I do get attacked, I'd only be able to cry for help in a super high-pitched voice. Though, I wouldn't expect people to try it in a mansion with a feudal lord on the watch. Rem, if I hear Subaru Kun's voice, I'll come running over right away. Even if I'm cleaning, even if I'm cooking, even if I'm taking a bath, please always call me Ram. Filthy. Subaru, quit looking at me with scornful eyes before I'm able to say anything. Rem shaked her invisible tail as a puppy maid, while Ram looked at Subaru with completely scornful eyes, as a kitty cat maid. After the usual interaction, they sought to conclude the conversation. Roswaal, anyways, as for me, I just want to keep the status quo. How about we find a solution? After asking Liliana a little more about the situation, Subaru, okay, then let's talk to her with that in mind. Honestly, right now she probably feels more dead than alive. After all, Ram, she caused a problem that's bothering Roswaal Summer. She should suffer a little. Subaru, even if it's towards the guest, that is too rude. Nay, Summer. Subaru smiles wryly at Ram's abusive language, and he puts his hand on the door to leave the room. Then, Roswaal, as long as you're with us, your safety is guaranteed. Make sure you communicate that point properly. Subaru was shocked by the deep statement that came from Roswaal's voice that hit his back.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 8.
Liliana, so, I don't gotta worry about y'all slaying me with a sword for now. Subaru, where do you come from? Liliana listens to the conclusion of the discussion, and she collapses in the chair dead tired, having stiffened up her whole body from nervousness. He decided to honestly excuse her slovenly appearance, for now. Because she must have went through suffocation while waiting, after all. Subaru, if you've learned from this experience, then don't think of trying something like involving a feudal lord with your own motives. This is actually something that could get you slain with a sword, you know. Liliana, arg. I'll reflect upon my actions. I'll be finer than wind, clearer than water. Subaru, that's a duplicate of my acting style. So, from now on, you're not allowed to use it. Liliana currently did not have the composure to respond to Subaru's cold retort with a witty joke. Liliana basically got people related to the feudal lord involved in her situation and exposed them to danger. Her idea was surely foolish, and she was certainly naive, too. As you'd expect, seeing Liliana down was a good way for Subaru to relieve his grudge. However, the one who saw Subaru and Liliana and puffed her cheeks angrily was Emilia. Emilia, Subaru. Liliana seems to really be reflecting on herself, so don't go any further. Subaru, you can't be like that, Emilia-tan. If we don't warn her firmly this way, she'll never start to have self-awareness. She has to be taught just how much trouble you can cause to everyone around by staying silent and keeping a secret. Emilia-tan, what's up with that look? Emilia, no, it's nothing. I was just thinking about how terrible it is to not have self-awareness. Subaru gets stared at by Emilia, and for some reason it makes him feel uncomfortable. Subaru understands the turn of events, and he changes the target of the conversation back from Emilia to Liliana. Subaru, so, I'm gonna ask you to speak in detail. But, when in the world did the white-clothed people start going after you? Liliana, I don't really know. I became clearly aware of them going after me in these past few days. Nothing special happened until that point. Subaru, nothing like an accident that would give a hint? Liliana, no. At best, there were things like my own feather pen going missing, my clothes going missing, after I took a bath, used tableware disappearing from the inn. Subaru, that sounds like damage from stalkers. When Subaru raised his voice because of the devious tricks, Emilia and Liliana both tilted their heads. It seemed like these girls couldn't grasp the concept of a stalker. Emilia was perfect. Liliana was a beautiful girl if she didn't open her mouth, so he wanted them to be careful, taking that into consideration. That said, when Subaru remembered the attacker situation, he shook his head. Subaru, your belongings going missing probably isn't related to those pursuers. You just have passionate, curious fans. Have they ever chased you around with a knife? Liliana, The way you speak is a slightly confusing. But anyways, today was the first time someone flicked a shiny object at me. If it wasn't, I would have had a little more of a serious look on my face. Subaru, doesn't really look like you have a serious look today either. But I guess this means their approaches have suddenly changed. Subaru goes into deep thought with Liliana's evidence, and he searches for the cause of the white-clothed people's change in their actions. However, there was one thing that came to mind when he thought of changes that happened most recently to Liliana. Subaru, did they panic? Because you met with this mansion's feudal lord? If Liliana's contact with Roswaal was what motivated the people who chased her, then it would fit the puzzle. But on the other hand, it meant that there was a reason to be worried with Liliana getting involved with people of power. Subaru, you really don't have any idea, huh? You seriously feel like a pretty dangerous troublemaker. If there's something you know and you don't barf out all of it around here, we won't be able to protect you. Liliana, such ridiculous remarks you're making by saying stuff like barf in front of a girl. I swear on the souls of my ancestors and this Liliana that I'm not hiding anything. Actually, I can't swear it on my Liliana yet. Please wait, Subaru, don't just lose confidence right off the bat. Subaru sighs at Liliana after yelling as she held onto her business tool tightly. But Liliana was also seriously looking for a clue, so while groaning she said, Liliana, I'm not even remotely trying to hide anything, but I got nothing. Although, this discomfort kinda feels like small bones getting stuck on all my teeth. Subaru, take out the bones properly before you eat fish. Subaru responds coldly at Liliana, her lacking seriousness even though she had a serious face, and he turned to Emilia, wanting to have a serious conversation. Subaru, so, Emilia-tan, did you have any realizations while we were talking about being dirtied with small bones? We made you listen to an unproductive conversation, right, Emilia? Not at all. Based off what Liliana said, things felt off about 2 weeks ago. It seems to have started before she came to our lamb village, when she left the town of War. So, if we assume there's a reason for that, Subaru, that's where it is, I'm almost certain something that happened there was the cause. Some sort of impressive matter, or whether she did something there or not. Oi, Liliana, why are you assuming that I did something, even after I let you guys treat me disgracefully? Subaru ignored Liliana while she had a whiny look on her face. Liliana grabs onto her pigtails while pouting, and she shook her head back and forth. Liliana, even if you say that, it was the same as always. That town is a little cold to outsiders, so feeling unwelcome would be. The song. Don't sigh after the song ended. Don't look at me like that, Subaru. I do feel bad for your heart breaking because of bad memories, but come on, say things that can give us hints, Emilia. Besides, why'd you even stay at a rude place, even if it was just for a little? I do have experience, myself, but I don't think it felt good for either of us. Subaru, I caught a glimpse of Emilia Tan's painful past, Emilia's innocent experience telling pierced Liliana while she held onto her head shaking. However, it was natural to point it out. Being a bard meant that you'd go where the wind blew, that you'd do things on a whim. There shouldn't have been any reason for a rootless girl to stay in a place that made her feel uncomfortable. Liliana, you see, those people certainly were cold, and they did completely irritate me, but, fortunately, the richest grandpa liked me. Subaru, oh, a rich grandpa, eh? Liliana, no. Geez, I meant that he adored me like a granddaughter. He even bought me a new Liliana. That's why it's new. She holds out the Liliana to show it off, and Subaru accepts it without thought. Liliana was euphoric, but to Subaru it only sounded like her fooling a lonely old man and making him support her. Liliana, I ate delicious food, slept in a comfy bed, and he even bought new things like a Liliana and clothes. It was like a dream. He. Subaru, you should do something about that vulgarity you have whenever you aren't singing. Liliana had an intoxicated look with drool that looked like it was going to drop. However, after she ignored Subaru's point, she suddenly made a gloomy expression. Liliana, but, unfortunately that time didn't last for long, either. One day the grandpa kicked me out of the mansion, not knowing what I did wrong. And that was the end of my riotous pleasures. Subaru, did you make careless mistakes while sleeping, like breaking vases and snatching food? Liliana, how rude. The last time I made a careless mistake was 5 years ago. She said 5 years ago, but that was when she was 16. Although, it would be tiresome to dig into that, too. Liliana made a baffled look, appearing to really have no idea why she was kicked out. There was an expression he was suspicious of, but rich grandpa was far from the core of the reason as to why she got kicked out. He also thought about the possibility of Liliana's pursuers having misunderstandings about there being something going on between her and the old man. Subaru, either way, I guess the hints are War Town and that grandpa. I'll tell this to Roswaal just in case. But can this even be investigated? Liliana, but, the grandpa helped with the things around me, and he also taught me the song that must not be sung no matter what, so I really have no idea. Subaru, is that so? Then I guess he can't be a clue. I'm stumped. Emilia, no, hold on a second. Subaru was just about to let go of something that seriously could not be ignored, and he stops the conversation in panic. However, the two girls were tilting their heads. It seemed like they weren't even kidding. That's why airheads are scary. Emilia Tan is seriously an angel. Emilia, what is the song that must not be sung no matter what? Liliana? It's a song the grandpa taught me, and it's about the secret that made a fortune in a lifetime. Honestly, it's not for me, whether it be because of the music or the lyrics. Emilia, geez. You can't talk like that about a song someone taught you. Can you play it once? Liliana, yes, with great pleasure. If you don't mind, I'd like to show everything in my repertoire. Liliana takes her Liliana from Subaru, and she was in a good mood strumming it. It also made Emilia's eyes light up. Her heart was pounding like a drum because of the request. Subaru closed his eyes with the two of them in front of him. After that, he took a deep breath and said, Subaru, that song is completely at fault. Then, He put an end to the two airheads' conversation with no retort in sight to come from them.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 9.
Subaru, but you know, Liliana, Phi? FWHT's up? Subaru, don't talk with your mouth full. Ladies can't be vulgar, Liliana, ha. It seems like Mr. Maid finally noticed my sexiness as a woman. Liliana appeared to be prideful for some reason, and the way she interpreted Subaru's remark was unknown. At the very least, her appearance of having her cheeks inflated with candy like a squirrel did not have a bit of an adult woman's sexiness. Liliana stuffed a ridiculous amount of Rem's homemade sweets in her mouth, and it was now afternoon, snack time. Subaru let out a sigh while enjoying the tea and sweets during the beautiful afternoon. Subaru, it's already been 3 days since you came here. Liliana, it has. That was quite quick. What about it, Subaru? It hasn't been at the level of continuous attacks, but seriously, what have you done? Subaru yells, looking back on the 3 days, and Liliana made her wide eyes even wider in surprise. In the 3 days Liliana stayed at the mansion, the gang's attacks on her were done frequently, be it in the morning, at noon, or at night, and she was attacked more than 30 times already. How good was the guess of them most likely hesitating if she was sheltered in the mansion? Subaru, at the moment, Rem shoots all of them down, but them escaping is the only thing unusual. Not a single one of them has been caught. Just who are we dealing with, Liliana? Oh, come on now. If I knew that, then I wouldn't be having trouble. Please don't make me say that at this point. Subaru, just how carefree have you become in merely 3 days? It was as if Liliana got very carried away in these past 3 days, laughing like it was none of her business. She only cowered in fear for a few hours in the first day. Now she was walking so confidently, as if the mansion was her own place. Or maybe Subaru was the one taking them lightly. Subaru, though there is luck in leisure. At this rate, I don't think Ram wants to wait, either. Liliana, I apologize for the inconvenience. If you aren't gonna eat those sweets, can I have them? Subaru, your gratitude really is just for show and lip service. Liliana stuffed herself with Subaru's share of sweets, appearing to have taken Subaru's angry voice as permission, and she was delighted. That behavior made Subaru feel bad for Ram, who was acting for Liliana's sake. As of now, Ram was doing an investigation all the way up to the War village Liliana stayed at before. She did this because it seemed that the town's rich man was related to Liliana getting chased. Although it was Roswaal's order, he could not forget the truly displeased look Ram had on her face before she left the mansion. You could say that the future of Ram letting out her anger on Subaru after she came back was guaranteed. Liliana, but you're very popular with everyone besides Ram. Liliana, songs are simply stubborn things that soak deep into hearts, indiscriminate of countries, words, and races. Well, bards succeed in life because of their true abilities. Sincere feelings move people. Subaru, I'm not convinced. Subaru felt some sort of sense of defeat in the beautiful girl that had a vulgar smile. It was splendid how her secrets to success were things such as her looks and true ability, but she was far from convincing. For a girl to be charming, Subaru felt like she had to have beauty in the heart. Subaru, for that, Emilia Tan truly is fitting for my first star. Emilia, did you call me just now? Subaru, eek. Right after murmuring his feelings out loud, Emilia showed up in the room, and his heart jumped. Seeing Subaru reflexively straighten himself, Emilia pointed above the room's door. There was this world's maritime crystal sparkling, which you could tell the time with based off the change in color. Emilia, see, it's about that time of the day again, you know? I came here because I couldn't wait. Subaru, that's a line I'd like to hear in my room when everyone's asleep at night. Rem said that she was going to clean up the tableware and stuff, too. Emilia, haha. Rem's also looking forward to it, after all. I'm interested in the continuation from yesterday, myself. Emilia had her cheeks sweetly blush a little because of her expectations. He felt jealous because that captivating face and her eyes weren't looking at him. Subaru unconsciously glared at Liliana. Liliana, I've got it. Please listen. Another person's love, the taste of honey. Subaru, shut up. Liliana takes a lick of the pastry cream on her finger, carrying the Liliana on her shoulder, and Subaru roared at her. He was simply a poor loser, so Liliana's triumphant look made him feel complete frustration. Rem, was it just about to start? Emilia, no, it's okay. Subaru was just teasing Liliana like always. Subaru, inside your head, I was the one doing the teasing. Emilia Tan? Emilia speaks to Rem, who came in late, and she was making space for her on the sofa. When Rem sat next to Emilia with an "excuse me," there was one seat left. Then, Beatrice, I'm coming in, I suppose. The door to the room had opened 3 times. However, this scene had a different effect than all the others. On the other side of the door, a scenery was now drawing a faint library in their vision, something that should have usually been connected to the mansion's corridor. A spacious room and cramped rows of bookshelves. There was a childish girl walking towards them from there. It was a girl that had cream-like colored hair put into magnificent drills. She made her doll-like pretty face into a sour look, and she entered the room while the edges of her flashy dress shook. She looks around the room, and she gave a little snort while having a composed expression. Beatrice, well, you waited quite long for me. That's the only thing I'll admire you for, I suppose. Liliana, oh please. There's no way I'd start without Beatrice Summer. Neglecting my obligations would be disgraceful of me as a woman. Beatrice, yeah. Nice Prudence. It seems like there are others who should follow your example, I suppose. In response to Liliana's welcome, the girl Beatrice looked down on Subaru. She did, but Subaru's eye level wasn't like that, and as long as he was used to her impudent behavior, she was nothing but lovely. Subaru, even so, I still can't believe Biko leaves the forbidden library to listen to Liliana's songs. Beatrice, occasionally experiencing a world that isn't reading books isn't that bad, I suppose. That girl's singing voice has its own value. A singing voice alone has more value than you, I suppose. Subaru, I seriously might get worried about my own worth, so can you quit it with those type of expressions? Beatrice ignores Subaru, him worrying about his own rating, and she sat down on the remaining seat. With this, the Roswaal residence's Liliana fans were all gathered together. With Emilia and Rem, and even Beatrice, the ones who liked Liliana's songs were the whole mansion, and it surprised her. Liliana, wow, well then, thanks for gathering like this today again. The singer that will color everyone's time through songs and stories is I, Liliana. Liliana gives a speech in the middle of the room while being looked at by her audience of 4. The way she said the standard phrases had dignity. It seemed that her behavior as a bard was the only thing she took seriously. He didn't criticize her for having bits of sweets stuck on her mouth. Liliana, well then, from here, what I will sing is a famous modern-day poem, The Sword Demon Love Song Act 2. Starting from when the sword demon who knew nothing but the sword meets a beautiful girl amidst the flowers. The girls applaud moderately at Liliana, her bowing, while Subaru applauded at her loudly. Subaru was aware of the fact that he was here, secretly looking forward to hearing the continuation of the song from yesterday. All in all, Subaru, and again Emilia and the others, all felt the same way. Sadly, Subaru was also wowed by this little singer's singing voice. Liliana, I will sing. Please listen. The Sword Demon Love Song. Liliana plucks the strings of her lyre, and her thin voice gets into the song, and she began to sing the prologue. That moment, the room's atmosphere melted into the song space made by the girl, and the feeling of the world changed completely. Liliana, the world changes form with Liliana's gestures, and even for the scenery, the way the song surrounded, it was just amazing. Subaru tried his absolute best to hold back his oohing and aahing while he continued to have goosebumps. He couldn't do something like destroy this beautiful world because of his own lack of insensitivity. The story starts from when the swordsman, who devoted himself so much to the sword that he was called the Sword Demon, won his first fight after becoming strong at the royal capital and finally met a lone woman. The love song changes color from there. The sword demon ran through the battlefield as he swung cold steel while keeping his unconscious love to himself. Act 2 ends when the sword demon exchanged words with the girl, feeling something equivalent of swinging the sword. Liliana, thank you for your kind attention. The tune of the lyre that shook the atmosphere ends. Liliana bends her back, leaving something that would stay in their minds. Seeing that, Subaru naturally straightens his back, and he clapped. As for those next to him, Emilia and Rem were also applauding the same way. Beatrice was the only one not clapping, but her mouth that formed a faint smile was proof of her satisfaction with Liliana's song. Emilia, as lovely as I thought. The story will definitely begin from here. Rem, the Sword Demon Love Dong is a song I know from beginning to end, and yet it felt like it was my first time listening to it. I can only admire Liliana's song. It was wonderful. Beatrice, it was okay, I suppose. I might as well come again to listen to the continuation. Subaru, what a dishonest lowly. Beatrice was viewing from above for some reason while Emilia and Rem were expressing their true thoughts. While putting in a retort for Beatrice, Subaru also intentionally avoided the opportunity to say his thoughts out loud. Liliana, so, what did you think of it, Mr. Maid? However, the bard that made her nostrils flare while having an evil smile would not permit Subaru's weak self-esteem. Subaru bites his lips, and he sighed, immediately giving up. Subaru, yeah, damn it. It hurts to say it, but it was amazing. I'm honestly concerned with you as a person and as a girl whenever you aren't singing, but when you do sing, it's the one time you are perfect. I was thinking of suggesting that you always sing, for the world's sake, the people's sake, and your own sake. Liliana, what is this? That should have been praise, and yet I don't feel satisfied. How strange. He felt annoyed honestly praising her, so it turned into a compliment with unintentional tints of abusive language. That made Beatrice snicker, and it caused Emilia to have a warm look. Rem, the Sword Demon Love Song is a total of 5 acts. I of course love the final 5th act, but I can't miss out on listening to tomorrow's 3rd act, too. I'll finish my work and run over, no matter what. Subaru, Rem, you really love this. As of now, I'm not so absorbed in Liliana's song that it overwhelms me, but if I listen to it until the end, then my thoughts might change. Rem, yes, they sure will. The Sword Demon's way of life is the ideal way for many men and women, even today. Subaru-kun, please come and see me someday just like in the Sword Demon Love Song. Subaru, if the spoilers I heard were true, then wouldn't that mean Rem and I would kill each other in the end? While replying, Subaru loosens his lips upon seeing Rem having her cheeks blush slightly because of her excitement. It was rare for Rem to show her emotions this much. It was the same case with Beatrice, going to listen, but Liliana's singing voice really did have power. He was honestly a little jealous of that. Subaru even tried so hard to become friendly with Rem, as much as he did with anyone else, so much he literally died. Subaru, she simply did that. That was not fun. Liliana, what is up with you, Mr. Maid? Even if you make such a whiny look, it's neither cute nor pleasant, at all. You need to look at yourself objectively more. Subaru, you're not very convincing with how you usually act. Or are you trying to make the difference big to make the amazingness you have when singing stand out? I guess you're a schemer aiming for gap, Mo. Liliana, I don't understand what you're saying, but that's exactly right on nom. Subaru, don't eat in the middle of speaking. The unexpected guessing ended in an unexpected way. The song ended, and Liliana reached for baked sweets once again, having put her lyre against the wall. The majestic and splendid angel became a fallen angel the instant she was polluted by the world called sweetness. Mixing in Liliana like that and transitioning into the tea party while chatting was the daily life for the past 3 days. However, today she didn't seem to behave herself. Rem, excuse me. Suddenly, Rem said that, stood up, and headed towards the window. Rem opens the window without a sound like that, and she gazes outside of it as she squinted her eyes. She checked on the mansion's main entrance, and she picked out something from her pocket with her right hand. Subaru, Rem, what is that? Rem, a little iron sphere. Since I don't have something I'm used to using at hand, Rem rolls an iron sphere about the size of a golf ball in her palm, and she threw it outside at a high speed, having a shy expression as if she was embarrassed. After 1 second, there were thick, rough screams. Rem, it hit. Subaru gives Rem a wry smile as she looked outside and gave him a thumbs up. When he looked outside while being next to Rem, he saw the white-clothed people carrying their unconscious comrades. Subaru, they don't learn, do they? Rem has bashed it into their heads so many times for them to learn. Rem, when I bash them, maybe the things they learn get poured out. Subaru shuddered at Rem, her not denying the bashing, and he sighed after watching the group that fled. This pattern of the group getting repelled by Rem like this repeated for 3 days. Rem, it was the people with white clothes this time. Subaru, yep. Wait, what's up with that bothering remark? This time it was people with white clothes. Rem, about the groups that are clearly after Liliana Summer, the white-clothed people and the crudely dressed people have mixed attacks. Most likely, I think the white-clothed people employed thugs, as they didn't have enough help. Subaru, seriously? Are you sure there are 2 groups? What's the possibility of them being unrelated? Rem, with this timing, it's hard for me to think that the 2 reckless forces have separate goals. Subaru also nods in approval at Rem's point. As one would expect, considering this timing, it would be too unlucky if the white-clothed people coming for Liliana were a separate suicidal group attacking them. But even so, he really was disturbed with the attack pattern. Subaru, can't we just go all out one time and catch them properly? Rem, I did think about that, but they were really good at escaping. I think I can catch them if I chase them seriously. But I'm worried about going too far from the mansion. Subaru, even if they get past Ram, there's still 2 to 3 boss characters in this mansion. Thinking of fighting strength, Rem was in the middle of the pack for real ability in the Roswaal residence. There was Emilia, who was dependent on Puck, and Roswaal and Beatrice with their solo fighting power. When looked at from outside, this was a mansion that had such an excessive amount of fighting power. Gathered that it would be foolish to attack them, Emilia, but leaving them on the loose too long would make me worried, too. It would be really problematic if they became impatient and started acting reckless. Subaru, what I really want to do is solve this quickly. These are hot-headed guys that just come at us, randomly, so I don't think it'll be a problem. But at worst, if they stop caring about how they go about it, they might even attack those around them. If, say, the damage reached Alam village, the worst outcome would become true. Although, there was the worst-case scenario of Roswaal burning the attackers to nothing without sympathy after they attacked his people. Subaru, it would be nice if Ram found a clue as soon as possible, so that doesn't happen. Emilia, Ram is smart, so she'd definitely figure out something right away. We haven't come up with anything even after listening to that song. The song that Emilia spoke of was the song that absolutely must not be sung, that was recognized as the cause of people going after Liliana. Subaru also listened to it many times to confirm it, and the song that must not be sung no matter what condition already made no sense to him. However, even Subaru didn't feel like it was a song that had any special meaning, it being closely related to a secret of a wealthy man making a fortune in a lifetime was also fake, considering how it was a plain, pastoral song that was about a hometown. Ram was acting now to confirm that, Beatrice, you're stuck in a trivial pickle, I suppose. Cutting up those bothersome and boorish people completely would make you feel better. Subaru, people were even finally searching for a peaceful solution, read the atmosphere. Tilting her cup of black tea to drink, Beatrice cruelly finishes saying that with an unemotional voice. It was ultimately a last resort, but ending it by destroying the hostile people would leave a bad aftertaste. Subaru learned that lesson with the conclusion of the witch-beast uproar. Not to mention, the people they were dealing with this time were not witch-beasts, but human like he was, so it would the lesson applied here even more. Subaru, as long as we have solid defense, we can impair them. Plus, if we attack aggressively ourselves, they all might proceed at once. Liliana, we don't have enough help or information to do that. It's all over already. There's also the Option to hang onto our heads and wait for the storm to pass by. Let's do that. Subaru, why are you so careless about this? Everyone's doing their best for your sake, you know. She was probably more relaxed in the time she was put under than she was in all her other days until now. Seeing Liliana relaxing, he guessed that he wouldn't need to have fears about his relationship with her after solving the issue, but there was still no hope for a process to arrive at the solution. Subaru, going on the offensive ourselves, he mutters the words he said again, and Subaru went into deep thought as he closed one eye. When he did, seeing Subaru's face from the side, Emilia gently knit her nicely shaped eyebrows. Emilia, oh, Subaru, by any chance are you doing some sort of evil plan again? Subaru, not nice of you to say again, though it sure is an evil plan. Subaru makes an evil smile in response to Emilia's point, and he looks back at the 4 people inside the mansion. While having the attention of all the girls, Subaru raised one finger and made a proposal. Subaru, I have a plan I want to try out. Can you guys help me?
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 10.
Still, what a stupid thing you've done. But it does make our job easier. Subaru stopped his cheeks from twitching as the man spit dirty saliva and laughed. They were in a dim cabin, and the windows were sealed so that they couldn't see outside. The Logmite light crystal was the sole source of light, and it was still barely enough to faintly see their surroundings. A gang he was now familiar with that acted as rough as they looked. That's how Subaru assessed them. If you continued staying at the mansion, nothing would have happened because of that monstrous maid, but now you've sealed your fate by showing up. You got a bit carried away, don't you think? The gang, who were just like thugs with a crude aura, altogether consisted only of 8 people, counting the ones that were in and out of the cabin. These people were at the top of the list of men who treated Subaru cruelly with vulgar looks on their faces. Oh? So cute. You're shaking, aren't you? Go calm her down, Mr. Handsome. Next to Subaru, who was acting frustrated, there was a girl face down shaking her head. Once the man saw that and spoke to him with a mocking voice, Subaru took her hand to protect her from the laughing men. Subaru, it'll be all right, calm down. You don't have to worry, it'll all work itself out. How brave. As if this is something that'll work itself out. We were always careful to avoid being found by that maid. Well, as long as we have the woman, you aren't needed. After we beat the hell out of you, we'll let you go. Seeing Subaru cheer her up, the man cracks his knuckles loudly to show off. When Subaru took a breath, he realized that she held his hand back tightly. It was a native dress that only covered her body minimally. She looked lonely with her exposed white shoulders, so Subaru hugged her gently to hide her from the men. She holds her breath, and the men whistle. Then it happened immediately after. Are you serious about getting her back? The door opens roughly along with that voice. The sunlight lights up the room in darkness, and once Subaru squinted reflexively, he saw a person's shadow out of breath standing while being backlit. When the shadow came into focus after several flashes of light, Subaru noticed that it was a young man. He was well dressed, and he caressed his hair randomly. The boy looks around the room, notices Subaru and the others, and widens his eyes. And then, oh, Liliana. Who's that guy? He's someone from the mansion where she hid, and they were caught. Master, the eyes of the boy looking at Subaru sharpen, and his face suddenly flushes. Once he saw the thugs, acting carefully to not hurt the young man's mood, he figured that he was their boss, the mastermind. Subaru makes that judgment, and the young man breathes near him heavily with his nose. You bastard. Who said you could touch her like that? Subaru, The enraged boy kicked Subaru into the wall with all his might. Subaru's head spins as he got hit with sudden violence, and the thugs around him take his place as they shout, Master, what are you doing? This guy was getting all intimate with my Liliana. The boy, shaking off the men who were holding him back, kneels before Liliana, who he forcefully pulled. away from Subaru. He holds his hand out to Liliana, still facing down, and he says, Liliana. We finally meet. It is your servant of love, Kiritaka. When I heard that you were brought to that infamous mansion of the demi-human lover, heartbreaking fear overflowed like spring water. Liliana. The boy named Kiritaka continues speaking to her, acting like he was getting drunk off his own words. Subaru could only frown since he knew his colleague had such a bad reputation that he couldn't really say that it was a false accusation. While patting her shoulder, he looks back at the thugs and says, Kiritaka, don't you all have any thoughts on working for that guy? He's a boss that's generous with his money. He can have that thin-bodied girl, while we take it easy, for a while. That guy would probably overlook us doing that for a bit. Based off the thugs grumbling, it seemed they also knew that guy meant the boss. Subaru finds out about how they are tight on money and anticipates that he was going to be wrong about all the fuss around Liliana. He'd thought that they were surely going for Liliana because of the song, but it looked like she herself was the one Kiritaka, the mastermind, had the hots for. Expressing love sure may be like paranoia, but the boy couldn't see what else there was to it. Kiritaka, what's wrong, Liliana? Why won't you look at me with your lovely eyes? Kiritaka, who had been appealing for love with nothing but passion, knits his brows in response to the girl that continued to keep silent. Kiritaka, why won't you speak? They must have done something awful when they took you. Please let it go, master. We did as you said. Not to be rude, but there's no way anybody would think of doing something to a girl with a body this thin. Beatrice, annoying squirts won't shut up, I suppose. When Kiritaka and the others started quarreling, a girl's low voice interrupts them. Kiritaka, hearing that with his face lifted, has his facial expression dyed with surprise. He was the only one who noticed it at this time. That the voice of the girl in his face was different from the one he sought. Kiritaka, who are you? You're not my Liliana, Beatrice. I don't have the faintest memory of being named by you people. Subaru puts aside his retort inside of him that was didn't they do that halfway through? And the girl stands up as her pigtails shook. But unlike Liliana's hair, it was braided into quite elaborate drills. Beatrice, inside and outside, a total of 9 people. An amount I can count on my fingers, I suppose. The next moment, inside and outside of the hut, there was the sound of men screaming roughly in a violently blowing storm.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 11.
Attacking the gang going after Liliana was a simple plan Subaru proposed. Subaru, a decoy plan where we try getting caught, since we couldn't find out where they go after, chasing them away and get taken to the mastermind. Good thing they weren't an energetic gang. Beatrice, you made me go this far, in fact. Of course it was going to go well, I suppose. Beatrice lets out a sigh. She was using the towel Subaru gave her to wipe off her hands and feet. She wipes off the paint that changed her skin color, and her brown appearance was slowly returning to its usual light skin. Subaru folds his arms while looking at Beatrice, who was wiping her whole body diligently. Subaru, still, the more you return to your usual appearance, the more I feel like something's weird about that getup. Beatrice, and whose proposal was it again to make me look like this? Subaru, I mean, yeah, it was my proposal, but I didn't think you'd look this pitiful. When Subaru shrugged his shoulders as if to lament Beatrice, blue veins showed on her forehead. Beatrice's current appearance was a disguise to trick the attackers, in other words, exposing dancer fashion that Liliana would usually wear. There wasn't a significant difference between Liliana's constitutional feminineness and Beatrice's constitutional feminineness, so why did he feel more pity for Beatrice? It was probably because he knew how she usually looked and that she was someone he was friends with. Beatrice, if Nichar didn't ask me and if it wasn't for that girl's sake, then I wouldn't have done this, I suppose. Subaru, well, by using that as an excuse and expecting it to go well, you surprise yourself with how bad your personality is. Still, all in all, you really are simple. Beatrice, I feel like you just made a ridiculously irritating assessment of me, I suppose. Subaru, I complimented you. It's the latest trend of signs of Mo. Not sure if it'll stick 10 years later, though. Subaru ignores Beatrice's look as she scowled, and he views the disastrous scene in the cabin. On the floor all over the place, there were the beaten-up thugs that invoked Beatrice's wrath. Subaru finds that Kiritaka, the mastermind, was now trapped under the large men, and so he put his hands together and prayed. There was a condition for the decoy strategy, which was that Liliana couldn't be exposed to danger. Making Rem be her guard, someone the men were being careful of, was a no. Putting Emilia under the bus would be outrageous, so Subaru and Beatrice had to be the perpetrators. Therefore, Puck asked and convinced Beatrice, who was hesitant, and she was made out to be Liliana, getting taken away from the girls as they screeched, and the decoy strategy was put into action. Although Subaru, the one who directed the plan, didn't expect it to go this well. Subaru, it's scary how fitting you are with my own plans. But since we've met the mastermind, Ram's efforts were in vain. Now there's even more of a chance that Ram spews venom when she comes back. This is too depressing. Beatrice, if you have time to complain, you should tie these guys up, so they don't get away. I suppose the younger sister will be here before long, and we'll have to take these guys back. Subaru, that's when they'll have a scary discussion with Roswaal. He's in this with us, though he had it coming. It was the conclusion of the expression of love that went too far. This basically meant that stalkers were scary no matter what age and no matter what world it was. Kiritaka, who foamed at the mouth and fainted, was the only one who knew what was so great about Liliana besides when she was singing. Subaru, anyhow, that was a disappointing conclusion. If the white-clothed guys knew that we captured the boss, they would have surrendered and abandoned ship. With this, I think the case is closed. Subaru still felt something was missing, but for the time being he just dropped his shoulders in relief. Then, what he picked up with his hand as he reached out was a lulaya given to them generously that was inside a case. It was an option they brought along after Beatrice disguised herself as Liliana. Subaru, it's undamaged, right? Who knows what Liliana would demand if it broke? Subaru, with a simple posture, takes out the lulaya carefully and plays it with his fingers. He confirms that it can make a light sound, and Beatrice was surprised when Subaru started to play a random tune. Beatrice, you can play that instrument? Subaru, the ropes of it aren't really that different from an acoustic guitar. I borrowed it from Liliana, every now and then in these past 3 days, and I can usually play it if it's a 70s folk song. Back at his original world, he would borrow his father's guitar and spend his free time playing and singing folk songs. It was useless practice since no one was there to listen, but his creativity was finally flourishing now that he crossed over worlds. Subaru, copyright won't catch up, so I guess now is the time I should start a renovation in this world's music. Beatrice, as far as I know, this is the first time I've seen a human improve only skills that are useless as you are. What's the point of being good at only those things? Subaru, the fact that there is no point makes me burn with passion. That's what being romantic is. Listening to Subaru's nonsense, Beatrice made a completely astonished look and sighed. Then, without any particular meaning behind it, she starts to listen carefully with her eyes closed. With a curious, calm look on her face, Subaru, sheesh. Guess I have no choice. It would be awkward to stop playing in front of Beatrice when she was already ready to listen. While Subaru used that as an excuse, the two of them had a peaceful concert alone until Rem came, running into the cabin with a worried look.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 12.
Emilia, so our attackers and the song have nothing to do with each other. Emilia, hearing about the circumstances from Subaru, murmurs that with her eyes wide open, the decoy plan safely ended as a success, and as for the attackers and the mastermind brought into the mansion, they should now be having a nice little chat with Roswaal and Rem. Subaru went to Emilia and Liliana while he waited for them to get something out of the interrogation, and he was now done with telling the details to the two people who were in suspense this whole time. The strategy was carried out, the two finished listening to the story at the mansion's courtyard, and they both were relieved now that a peaceful solution was in sight. Emilia, really, thank goodness. Subaru, you aren't hurt anywhere, right? And is Beatrice safe? Subaru, they roughed me up a bit, so I want to cry, but I'll act tough since I'm in front of Emilia Tan. Beatrice also turned back to normal, changed clothes right away, and shut herself in a room. Emilia, I see. Beatrice was so cute too. It's kind of a shame. Subaru smiles wryly at Emilia, who became despondent. As for Beatrice, she must have suffered from having to be a dress-up doll. When she came back, she immediately changed clothes, threw the clothes at Subaru, and quickly disappeared into the forbidden archives. Liliana, is that so? I really wanted to thank Beatrice Summer, that's too bad. Then, Liliana, who had been silent up to this point, let that out quietly. As one would expect, it seemed like Liliana also had a lot of thoughts on being presented with the settlement of an uproar focused on her, since she was the victim of a pretty insidious stalker. Subaru, about that mastermind Kiritaka, do you know him? From what I've seen, he seems to have quite the crush on you, but maybe it's his bad eyesight. Liliana, ignoring that last part, I do know him. It was before I came here, and before I came to Roswaal. There was a commercial town I passed by, and I think there was an heir of a famous merchant family. Subaru, I thought it was going to be like the rich man who got fed up with you, but it's exactly like it. Did you not know that you were being followed? Or well, I can't believe you weren't aware of it. Liliana, he liked the songs a lot and treated me with stuff like delicious food. But I wanted to leave it at that and say goodbye. Subaru, so you're saying that everywhere you end up, you always cajole someone? Perhaps Liliana's looks were in high demand in this world, like with the rich man at Roswaal. It was a view that conflicted with Subaru's, as someone who thought Emilia looked the best. Being stared at rudely by Subaru, Liliana holds onto her thin body with her arms. Liliana, why are you looking at me with dirty eyes all of a sudden? Have you finally fell for my charm, knowing that everyone else is so interested in me? Did I steal your heart? Subaru, there. I'm really glad that it looks like you are back to your normal self. You are not being stalked because of your own clumsiness, so don't have shame. Here, I'll give you your Liliana back. Liliana, humph. That doesn't satisfy me at all. But I'll take back my Liliana. He pushes the Liliana against Liliana, and she accepts it with a dissatisfied look. Still, if she was fine, then she was fine, even if it was just on the surface. The more he could get out of her, the better. Subaru, what is it, Emilia Tan? Why are you looking at me with those kind, cute eyes? Emilia, no, it's nothing. I was just thinking about how Subaru is as dishonest as Beatrice. Subaru tilts his head in confusion at Emilia, who gave a slight chuckle. Liliana, but with this matter, now I owe a lot to everyone. So, I can't just start talking about a story of a new hero with the Lord. I have so much regret. There's no more hope. Liliana viewed the situation objectively. In this situation she put herself in, on one hand, the immediate problem had been resolved, and she was depressed with a shocked look on her face. From her point of view, she was someone who caused trouble repeatedly at the mansion. Even Liliana, someone who shined with shamelessness, didn't want to act any bolder than this. However, if Liliana knew Roswaal's true motive, she truly was worrying over nothing. Rather, since Liliana, the bard, had a debt to get involved with the royal election, you could even say that this strife actually led to a beneficial result. Subaru, well, Roswaal will tell you about that part of the story. He might even give you a backhanded compliment for indebting yourself. Liliana? What do you mean by that? Subaru, you'll find out soon enough. Emilia and Liliana both tilt their heads in response to Subaru speaking. Emilia couldn't wrap her head around the situation behind the scenes, though it would have been nice if at least Liliana could, and it was cute how she was trying to help out of her own pure goodwill. Then, Subaru gets up from the lawn as he went all right, and he looks up at the mansion. It had been nearly 1 hour since the start of the interrogation. This should be about the time when they got some sort of information out of them regarding the situation. Subaru, It wouldn't be right to make the stalker's victim and the assailants confront each other, but I do want to see what Roswaal has to say about this. I'm gonna go check it out for a bit, Liliana. Oh, then before you do that, I'd like to leave my instrument and a change of clothes in my room. With a serious look, Liliana, who heard that he was going to where the mastermind was, requests him to prepare her things. It's true that it wouldn't be suiting to have the clothes Beatrice wore and the Liliana in the confrontation room. Subaru, then let's leave behind the luggage first. Emilia Tan, you can go to the office. Emilia, yeah, got it. We need to discipline the evil people properly, after all. Emilia, who was gentle and cute, clasps her slender hand as she was in a huff. While feeling pleasant, Subaru heads towards the direction opposite of Emilia with Liliana. Emilia was heading to the office from the courtyard, while they were heading to the east wing where the guest room was at the front. And so,
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 13.
Emilia, who had been going up the mansion from the courtyard using the main wing stairs, suddenly raises her face because of a sudden presence. She sees Rem land on the landing of the stairs that headed up to the third floor, swirling her skirt. Emilia, seeing the short edge of her skirt swaying gently, blinks with surprise. Emilia, Rem, it's dangerous to run like that through the corridor. Rem, Emilia Summer, sorry. But it's an emergency. Emilia, an emergency? Rem, someone who was usually calm, showed a rare sight of being in a panic, so Emilia raised an eyebrow. Then, Rem trots up to Emilia, and she looks around the bottom of the stairs. Rem, weren't you with Subaru-kun and Liliana Summer? Emilia, they went to go leave the luggage in the room. Did you find out something? Rem, Roswaal Summer got them to spill most of the beans. Things like the ringleader is the heir of the company Muse, the person named Kiritaka Muse, and that he is after Liliana Summer because of an extreme crush. Emilia, yeah. Subaru did tell me that much. As for Liliana, she herself had no idea how much of an infatuation he had, and it was strange to her. But, Rem shook her head in response to Emilia's reply. Rem, sorry, but that's not the point. About Kiritaka, he hired thugs and paid them to bring Liliana Summer to him. Though, his efforts came to nothing because of Subaru-kun's decoy strategy. Emilia, there's more to it. Rem, according to Kiritaka, he kept insisting that he had no memory of hiring the white-clothed group, and that he had nothing to do with them. The moment Emilia heard that, she understands why Rem was in such a hurry and jumps down the stairs. With Rem next to her, Emilia ran as fast as she could to the east wing, where Subaru and Liliana went. To Liliana's room. Emilia, they aren't here. Emilia doesn't find the people she sought in the room left open, and her voice trembles because of her own blunder.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 14.
On top of the rattling cart being pulled, there was Subaru wrapped in a bamboo mat, glaring at the sky. Liliana and he were going back inside the mansion, and just when they realized they were hit, they were in this situation. He was laying down facing up, and he only saw the blue sky. It was the worst situation. He was tied with rope from the top of the cloth that covered him tightly, and he couldn't move at all. Once he made a guess based off this situation of pain being left slightly on his head and being wrapped in a bamboo bat. ? Oh, looks like this lad woke up too. Sorry for treating you roughly. The voice Subaru heard came from someone that noticed he woke up. When he moved his head to see where the voice came from, he saw a white-clothed person sitting. Subaru confirms the bad taste of having pure white from top to bottom, and he was pretty much right about the situation. He thought they'd caught their boss, but the white-clothed people kept acting so they were unrelated. Subaru, which means that the Liliana fan and the song are separate matters. This is too complicated. Liliana, I've got it. Please listen. Liliana, the name of a guilty flower. Subaru, shut up. This is not the time to be saying that. Subaru roars upon hearing the voice of the girl wrapped in a bamboo mat just like he was. He wasn't in a place where he could see Liliana, but at the very least, it seemed she had enough composure to say her usual slightly stupid comments. While feeling relief inside thanks to that, Subaru, Looks at the white-clothed man. Subaru, anyways, would it be safe to say that we'll be able to talk without you hitting me and kicking me? Yeah, that'll make it easier for us too. I should have said this earlier, but our top priority is to transport you peacefully. Subaru, you really should have. You're not very convincing. When Subaru made that reply, the man said you got that right with a soft chuckle. Then, the man takes off the hood of his white clothing, exposing his unshaven face to the air. It was a middle-aged man, in his 40s. We are the mercenaries White Dragon Scales. The man, face exposed as he named his organization, was looking to negotiate. While feeling the shaking of the cart platform, Subaru also felt like there was something off about his attitude, which was relatively rational considering how he roughly kidnapped him. Subaru, hey, I think I'm going to feel sick. Can't you sit me up before we talk? If I do that, you'll then want to lean against something, so it'll be too much to deal with. I got carried away and tied you up too tight, practically like a pole, so it'd be a pain to make you stand too. Sorry, but you're gonna have to lie down. Subaru, I'm going to vomit once I hit my limit. All I have is mayonnaise inside of me. Feel the horror of my white vomit. He only ate the minimum amount of food this morning because of the decoy plan. He had only slurped mayonnaise he reproduced in the different world, so if he did throw up, that would be the only thing to come out of him. Then, when the man gave up and threw his hands up upon hearing Subaru's reply, a different voice came into the conversation. Liliana, is this not a dragon carriage, but a brave ox farrow carriage? Feels like you're using a pretty outdated animal. It's antique now. I don't care if you're trying to shock me, being sarcastic, or trying to praise me with that, but nothing good will come out of doing any of that, so shut your mouth for a bit. Subaru tilts his head as much as he could, and at the corner of his eye he sees someone's feet caught. It looked like Liliana was laying down facing the opposite direction of Subaru, and she was moving her tiptoes repeatedly. Subaru, I wouldn't really put it as one disaster happening after another. Maybe more like experiencing two disasters and still not figuring out what's going on. Liliana, the success of the careless decoy strategy completely backfired. I wonder what Mr. Maid has to say about this as the one who proposed it. Subaru, if I can just smack you for acting like you're not a part of this, I won't even care what happens anymore. Somehow Subaru was keeping calm thanks to Liliana managing to act the way she usually would. They were actually completely in the palms of the white-clothed people's hands. Just like Liliana said, they went to an insecure place after the decoy strategy's success, and they were attacked. The situation had the two groups cooperate, even though they hadn't even planned to do so, and the groups led them around by their noses. Subaru, now's about the time when the ones in the mansion should have probably noticed that we aren't there. The fact that he had only a few people dedicated to pursuing meant that it was going to be difficult for them to get immediate help. Even out of the little personnel they had, Ram was out of the mansion to investigate. There was no way Emilia and Roswaal would act directly, and whether Beatrice would help or not was unknown, which would mean that the only one who could surely do something was Rem, Liliana, and she has to guard the others too, so I'm guessing we can't count on it. Subaru, yeah, that's right. Those words hit Liliana where it hurt, as if she had predicted Subaru's thoughts. If he didn't have much options with his forces and the situation, then how would he guarantee their safety? Subaru, we won't rely on anyone else, and it'll depend on our own negotiation. As ready to talk as to act, he carves the path to release them, one that wouldn't incur the anger of the person they were dealing with. Fortunately, the person had intentions of talking with them. Subaru had no choice but to come up with a solution they both would agree with, and struggle so that they could be released safely. Liliana, do your best, Mr. Maid. Subaru, there's a higher chance it'll work if you don't say anything. I'm not going to repeat it again, so just keep that in mind. Are you two just about done talking? The man who had been waiting for Subaru and Liliana to stop talking gets in Subaru's eyes again, perhaps thinking that this would be a good time to do so. The man sinks down onto the cargo platform and sat cross-legged. So, I'll introduce us again. We are the mercenaries White Dragon Scales. Subaru, sorry, but I just left my hometown, so I don't really know much about the rumors here. That woman probably doesn't know about it either, seeing as she's a bard that goes wherever life takes her, a rootless wanderer. Plus, she's a bit dumb anyways. Liliana, hey, Mr. Maid. Why are you calling people stupid? The conversation was going to stop moving forward, so Subaru ignores Liliana's complaint. The man with an unshaved face also treats Liliana the same way, ignoring her voice as he felt his chin. Even if you aren't familiar with it, I can't do anything about that. Even in Lagunica only one area knows this name, and it's already been almost 10 years. We can't push ourselves as much as we did back then, too. Subaru, back then. Did you guys reform or something? If you're going to be naughty, you should consider how old you are. We neither broke up nor retired. Though, there was a reduction in activity. This is because there's a final job we must settle. We won't throw in the towel until it's taken care of. The unshaven man says that with a low voice, determination in his eyes, a strict aura, and a hint of a tragic man. Subaru guesses that he had some uncommon circumstances, and he sighed while lying down. Subaru, what is that last major task needed for you guys to throw in the towel? Our mercenary group's safekeeper took every single bit of what we owned and betrayed us. We're going to get back what he stole. We won't stop until then. Subaru? What does that have to do with Liliana? Liliana couldn't possibly be the betrayer, considering their ages. You see, that damn backstabber built a mansion at our town. That's where he went on a spending spree and lived the good life. We found his tracks. We were going to get our money back immediately, and make him pay. But, that bastard, Subaru, the bastard noticed that we found out where he was, hid the money in a cave, of all places, and sealed it from the top with a meteor. The key to remove that seal is the song, Subaru, the song. So that's how it's related. As Subaru heard the unshaved man's angry voice, song ran through his mind like thunder. The old man that welcomed Liliana and taught her the song that shouldn't be sung. That person was the safekeeper that betrayed the White Dragon Scales. The song wasn't hiding how the old man built a fortune. The song itself was the key to the seal for the treasure the old man hid. The old man forced Liliana to make the key, who happened to pass by, and he drove her out of town to keep her away from the seal. The White Dragon Scales noticed that Liliana knew about the song, and so they tried to capture her. Kiritaka was just an idiot. Just noise that complicated the situation. Liliana, so the one who betrayed you was War's rich man. Do you want revenge? It's too late to bear a grudge against that guy who betrayed us, so we don't care about that. What we want back is the treasure. All we want is a significant amount of money. We have to get it back. The man facing down had a serious look as he lowered the tone of his voice. For some reason, they needed a large amount of money. They also didn't have time to waste. Subaru, do you know where the cave with the money is? I do. So all we need is the song to remove the seal. In other words, Subaru, you'd be extremely happy to have Liliana remove that seal with the song. The problem was solved, and Subaru and she were released safely. Subaru looked very cheerful since he found a common ground and a way for them to be released safely. He calls out to Liliana, who shook her tiptoes to get her approval. Subaru, hey, Liliana. You were listening, right? As long as you sing that song that shouldn't be sung, no matter what in the cave, the problem is settled. So, Liliana, fuse, Subaru / what? The foolish voices of Subaru and the unshaved man overlap. It was because Liliana's answer was so unexpected that it made them speak in unison unintentionally. Liliana stretches her tiptoes firmly. It was almost looked like she was saying that she wouldn't change her mind. Liliana, I don't sing to open the seal to caves, nothing like that. Subaru, Liliana, songs aren't replacements for stuff that will eventually disappear, like treasure and gold. I refuse. Songs, stories. Bards, don't you dare look down on them.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 15.
Subaru adjusted his seating position on the cold, hard ground, trying to ease his aches. He rubbed his thighs together, sat inside this chilly cave, wondering what the time was. Dusk had been setting in before they'd entered the cave, so it was likely nighttime outside by now. The howl of the wind would echo through the cave from time to time, brushing against his eardrums, like the wails of many evil spirits. He could see why this place was feared as an underworld disconnected from the world of men, at least, if it were not for the faint glow of moss on the walls and the presence of people hovering nearby. Subaru, with the howl of the wind, this place gets shivering cold, even in broad daylight. Even the locals refuse to go near it with all the talk about how no good can come from it. Guess that makes it the perfect place to hide treasure. The unshaven man, who was standing by a wall, gave him a fierce grin, as if reinforcing Subaru's conviction. His looks and manner of speaking were rather rough, but despite that, he was pretty rational and willing to talk things out with them. He still had his mask off, which he'd removed during their journey, and was interacting with them with his face uncovered. Subaru, though, I think I've heard somewhere that a kidnapper showing their face to their hostages is a bad omen. Unshaven man, it's your bad for getting involved, bro. It's gonna be annoying if you're gonna kick up a fuss about it now. If you're gonna hold a grudge, then hold it against yourself for being with the lil lady back there. Subaru, no way, it's pretty obvious that I'd hold a grudge against you people. Don't try and shift the blame. Unshaven man, I guess that's how it is. The unshaven man gave his belly a pleasant slap and smiled at his hostage, who just wouldn't shut up. How could he even smile in a situation like this? Subaru thought to himself, ? Quit being so fucking stubborn. You'd better not piss us off too much. A furious voice came echoing from deeper inside the cave, drowning out the howl of the wind and bringing all kinds of threats, intimidation and coercion with it. The rage it carried was the real deal. It was obvious to anyone listening that their fury could explode at any moment, bringing violence with it. Yet despite that, Liliana, absolutely not, I refuse. I don't sing my songs in any other way than the way they're meant to be enjoyed. You can't treat bards like this. Matters had been complicated by the frantic anger she was showing in response to him. The girl's shrill voice rejected the demands the man had set, and instead kept insisting on the importance of her own professionalism. Unshaven man, doesn't look like they're making any headway. The unshaven man briskly scratched his short hair. Subaru completely agreed with what he'd muttered. They'd both reached conclusions they couldn't back down from, so it seemed unlikely that they'd give into a compromise. Several hours had passed since Liliana had tearfully cussed them out. Their heated argument hadn't stopped, even when they'd arrived at the cave. The White Dragon Scales were a small group that numbered around 10 people in total, which included the unshaven man that was keeping an eye on Subaru. Apparently, he was the representative of the group. It was thanks to him taking the sensible approach that they'd, so far, managed to avoid a situation where the others would use violence against Liliana and Subaru. Nevertheless, there were still several among them who'd suggested making use of the extremists. Even now, a young man with short brown hair and a ghastly voice was engaged in a shouting match with Liliana, spittle flying from their mouths. The youth had a bandage wrapped around his nose. The way he'd acquired this injury served as one of the reasons for his stubbornness. Unshaven man, that's what he got from being hit by the blue-haired girl when we first began to probe your mansion. His nose got smashed up good, so his resentment towards that is part of the reason why he's so pissed. Subaru could only agree with a aha to what he'd said. There were 3 more of them that had strong shades of anger filling their voices. They'd all been victims too, who had fallen prey to Rem's small iron sphere. Subaru, but Liliana's stubborn as well. Like stubborn as heck. Is professionalism really something so important that you trade your life for? Liliana wasn't going to change her mind, even with each of the men threatening her in tandem, though you'd think she was just a frivolous airheaded woman, she did also have this side to her where she'd stubbornly stick to her beliefs like this. Troublesome and difficult to deal with, she was the very paragon of that unshaven man. It's a big deal for her. There's always something out there that makes you willing to trade your life for. None other than the man in white garb voiced his agreement with Liliana's intent, having caught ear of Subaru's muttering. Subaru turned doubtfully towards him. As soon as he did, the unshaven man fixed his gaze at the back of the cave with an uncomfortable look on his face. Unshaven man, anyone can eat, breathe and sleep if they just wanna stay alive. But, you know, there's always gonna be stuff you can't compromise on when you're trying to do other things in life. Subaru, you sure are acting all relaxed. Shouldn't you be in a hurry? Unshaven man, the other guys are, I guess. But for me, I don't really have a reason why I should be in a hurry anymore. And yet, I'm still going along with this because I'd like to believe I wasn't just eatin', breathin' and sleepin'. Subaru, the unshaven man looked down, took the liquor bottle that he had with him, and downed it in one go. He crudely wiped away some drops that had spilled from the side of his lips and turned his somewhat vacant eyes towards the darkness. Subaru didn't know the details behind this, nor was he planning on asking. The man wasn't going to tell him that much either. Even so, spending time like this was only going to add to their pains. Subaru, hey, sir. Beardy. I'm sorry, but it'd be really sweet if you could loosen this rope a bit, so it's easier to move about. Unshaven man, hey, I ain't gonna use violence 'cause I'd like to resolve things peacefully, but I can't let you be free like that. It'd spell trouble if you were to be found showing signs of escape, or whatever. Subaru, I know. I'm not going to run away. You can still leave both of my hands tied up. Just let me walk to the back on my own 2 feet. I've got a bunch of things I'd like to say to Liliana. The unshaven man pondered Subaru's request for a while, before heaving out a sigh. Unshaven man, it's not like we're getting anywhere at this rate. Fine. We've been persuading her, but there's probably a better chance of her being swayed by one of her own. Go persuade her properly. For both of our sakes. The unshaven man untied the rope from Subaru's legs. Subaru stretched his legs out, which had grown completely stiff in these hours, and after he'd gotten the blood flowing properly in them, he stood up. Subaru, you come as well. There's no point in you staying here drinking liquor. With a jerk of his chin, Subaru headed towards the back of the cave with his arms still tied behind his back. A cold breeze swept across his fringe as he walked forward, and for a few moments, his eyes squeezed shut due to the light of the lugmite ore. Then, he tentatively opened his eyes and took in the situation. Subaru, so this is the door that's sealed by the song. What a troublesome meteor. There was a black wall in front of him, blocking the way to the deepest part of the cave. The wall was practically crammed between the rocky passage, with patterns grooved into its surface and a blue crystal in its middle. Though the material it was made of resembled iron at first glance, its Stygian appearance gave it an uncannily creepy and oppressive look. Unshaven man, this contraption sets specific conditions and won't move unless they're fulfilled. It doesn't have to always be a song, but this door's fine-tuned to use the Lil Lady's song as its key. Subaru, it's fine-tuned to Liliana's song. Unshaven man, it won't open if someone else sings the same song. They made the meteor listen to the song back at the mansion, and sealed the cave up like that. That's why only the Lil Lady's song is capable of opening it. Subaru once again stepped towards the meteor after hearing the unshaven man's explanation. Liliana was standing in front of the black wall, refusing to listen to anything she was told. Along with her were the men clad in white, who were painstakingly trying to get her to sing. We're just one goddamn step away, don't screw about. Just sing a wee bit and everything will be over. Liliana, I refuse. How could anyone look down on singing so much, to even go as far as saying, sing a wee bit? Though my inspiration is flashing. Listen if you please, your hearts, unlike the clothing you wear, are pitch black. Subaru, shut the hell up. You really never change, quit provoking them. Subaru snapped at Liliana as she kept provoking them, her face averted away. The men reacted in surprise at this third-party intrusion. Liliana too looked up at him, keeping only one of her eyes open. Liliana, whoa, what's up, Mr. Maid? Have things perhaps gotten to the point where they're going to beat you up to make me listen to what they have to say? Just to let you know, I'm not going to give in, even if they beat you to a pulp. Subaru, quit it, this isn't going to cut it. Besides, if these people get into the mood to play hard, it's going to be you, the woman, who's going to have a rougher time. You know that, right? Right, Liliana? What are you imagining? Stop. That's shameful. Liliana's face turned beet red, denoting her shame at how the conversation she'd been thrown into had developed. Subaru let out a sigh seeing her thoughtless demeanor and then looked over at the men. Subaru, I'm all too familiar with the troubles you're going through. She doesn't listen to anything, right? I hate to say this, but I doubt this girl's gonna change her mind, even if you ruffle her up. The men looked at each other awkwardly after Subaru had spoken, his words laced with sighs. Subaru, so, you're definitely not going to sing, yeah? They're so eagerly awaiting your song, yet you still won't sing it. Liliana, Mr. Maid. Liliana looked straight at him with a serious look on her face. Liliana, I'd sing if my song was actually needed. But what these fine gentlemen are looking for isn't my song. They're looking for the results my song will bring them. I will never sing for something like that, even if they cut my throat and tear out my tongue. Subaru, so in the worst case, you wouldn't budge, even if your life was on the line? Liliana, correct, even if my life was on the line. Creases would appear in one's pride, once you abandon it to save your own skin. Then it would fold quite easily, over and over again. Eventually, the countless creases would make it so your pride wouldn't be visible to anyone else. I would definitely hate looking at a prideless me in the mirror. Liliana chewed her lower lip after she declared that. Her expression showed resolve towards the possibility that her comments had brought the displeasure of the men, as well as preparedness to be hurt by them, an unwavering sense of professionalism. Rather, that was already quintessentially Liliana's way of life. Subaru let out a sigh at her stubborn attitude, having lost count of the times he'd done so already. Subaru, my life is going to be in danger as well if you're not going to sing. Are you not going to bother, even when it comes to that? Liliana, HK, though she'd kept her gaze steeled, she had let out a small noise, still not showing agreement to what he'd said. Something wavered in her eyes for a moment, causing Subaru to smile broadly, as if he were saying, oh well, there's no helping it. If she'd been the sort of girl who unreservedly put others' lives beneath her pride, Subaru would have gladly been able to give up on her. However, since she'd hesitated and considered putting a crease in her pride for a moment, there was really no helping it. Subaru, it's as you've heard. She's not going to sing. So I'm not gonna make her do it either. Unshaven man, hey, what are you? The unshaven man expressed his surprise at what Subaru had said, almost like he was saying, that's not what you told me. He could sense far more dangerous signs developing among the men nearby as well. Liliana, Mr. Maid, why are you? Subaru, if you don't want to sing, then you don't have to. It's just how I feel about it as well. Subaru shielded Liliana from the men's gazes. Her voice trembled as she looked at him from behind. Hearing how her voice sounded, Subaru realized that he was on the right track and faced towards the front. Subaru, her songs aren't tools. You'd all understand if you were to actually hear them. Mercenary, you'd better stop screwing around. Subaru, if she doesn't want to sing, then I definitely don't want to make her. As much as it frustrates me, her singing is really damn good. Just about anyone would be able to see that if they were to listen. I don't want to do anything that'd make her pointlessly waste her talent, so I ain't gonna let her. Subaru shielded Liliana as he broke into that tirade, standing in front of the men whose eyes had grown cold. The unshaven man looked around in panic, but all the other men clad in white seemed ready to cross the line at last, thanks to Subaru's insistence. One by one, the men stepped forward towards them, the air ripe with tension. Liliana, Mr. Maid. Liliana called out to Subaru, her voice quivering due to the ferocious looks on the men's faces. There was something apologetic about her voice. Mercenary, fucking bastards, I'm gonna get even with this fucker and then force that little girl to sing. Subaru, how about we do this instead? Mercenary, who? The white-garbed man who'd leaned towards him, looking ready for a fight, was caught off guard by Subaru's shout and toppled over. Subaru brought his own face near to his, as he lifted his own up, and said, Subaru, let's just ignore the meteor's seal while still taking all the treasure.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 16.
All it took was a simple change to how they approached it. The treasure was hidden in a cave located inside a rocky mountain, not an iron-walled fortress or a pyramid made from huge slabs of stone. The only thing blocking their way was this magical door. Subaru, thus, we can just dig a tunnel and go around it. The bedrock is pretty loose, so it should collapse if you dig your pickaxes into it. Unshaven man, who would be dumb enough to meticulously hide their treasure in such a brittle cave? The unshaven man muttered that besides Subaru, looking rather shocked, as the latter supervised the excavation with his arms folded. With sweat pooling down his forehead and his face smudged with dust, the unshaven man looked up ahead of him and said, Unshaven man, even so, I wonder why I couldn't get my head around something so simple. Subaru, when you're so dead set on looking at things in one way, you lose sight of all the options you have at hand. You see, I live my life to find faults in others, that's our main difference. Unshaven man, that doesn't really sound flattering. He forced a smile on his face as he heard Subaru's unboast-like boast, before then straightening his back up and returning to his work. The men clad in white were taking turns digging the tunnel with some tools they'd brought along. They were extremely motivated considering that the treasure they sought was almost within their grasp. The tunnel that would bypass the meteor would probably be completed in no time. Subaru, in that case, I can safely stand down from my post. Guess I'll just be a bystander for now. Liliana, Mr. Maid. Liliana timidly called over to Subaru as he sat on a rock in afterthought mode. Both of them had already been freed from their restraints, so if they felt like leaving this place, they could. However, they were sticking around because it'd be a shame to leave without seeing the treasure. That, and they couldn't really say that their efforts were going to let them off the hook, even if they'd been released without harm. Subaru, what's up? It's not like you to be so timid. Why don't you take a seat? Though be careful, the rocks are sharp around here. Liliana, all right. Well then, excuse me, but... Hiya? Ow. Oh ah. It's sharp. It's really sharp. The end nearly went up my bum. It nearly went up my bum. Subaru, didn't I just warn you? It's really not my fault, you know. Subaru frantically defended himself as Liliana rolled about in agony, holding her buttocks. After a little while passed, she sat on a rock that wasn't sharp, with tears in her eyes, and glared at him. Liliana, that really hurts. You're responsible for this, so you'd better give me tons of money. Subaru, how am I even responsible? Besides, you can't get anything genuine from something you'll run out of one day, wouldn't you think? Liliana, you need money to live in the moment. You can't fill your belly only with dreams. Subaru, where the hell did you throw that noble image of yours you were showing before? Shouldn't you go and pick it back up? Liliana stunned Subaru with her rapid-fire snobbish remarks before casting her eyes down. Liliana, Mr. Maid, about before. Why did you stick up for me? Subaru, 'cause I'm a guy, and you're a gal, I guess? Though, I could imagine myself using you as a shield, back there, shrinking down behind you and crying out in fear, but I didn't want to do that. Liliana, that's not what I meant. Though, yeah, you did step out in front of me too. But what I meant was, why did you forgive me for not singing for them? She said that in a small voice that he could barely make out, seemingly a manifestation of her unease. Subaru groaned out a MHM in response, and continued, Subaru, it's no biggie, it's just like I said when I shouted at them. I didn't let you sing because you didn't look like you wanted to. It's not like I didn't have a backup plan. Liliana, Subaru, If I didn't have a backup plan, I would have probably made you sing. I ain't strong enough to back you up no matter the circumstance, and we ain't close enough for that either. There was a way to handle both matters, so I took them. That's all. While giving her this rather blunt response, he looked over at the men who were busy swinging their pickaxes. Liliana followed his gaze before then muttering the word both to herself. Subaru, those guys are pretty pushy, and they're low lives of course. But they do give off a pretty, desperate vibe. They have some kind of goal in mind, so I guess they need that money. They don't look like they're acting in self-interest to me. It had been the case for both the way the unshaven man spoke, and the youths who'd been seething in frustration. Something was gnawing at their hearts, something which they needed the treasure to vanquish. The shrill clang of their pickaxes crashed against the rocks as Subaru waited anxiously for the tunnel to be complete. He didn't take notice of Liliana gazing at his face in profile, with various mixed emotions swirling across her eyes. All that was left for him was to wait for the men to let out their cheers of joy. On closer inspection, I do envy how laid back you are, Barusu. Hearing a rather familiar voice saying his nickname, Subaru jumped in fright before turning around. At the end of his gaze, by the cave entrance, was the figure of a girl in maid's dress holding a ligmite, or lamp in one hand. Ram. She looked at Subaru and Liliana, whose eyes were wide open in shock, and gave them a sigh accompanied by a shrug of her shoulders. Ram, you've totally screwed up, Barusu. I had to go out of my way to come here after Rem desperately told me about this. I even had to put Roswaal Summer's orders on hold for the time being. Subaru, I'm really sorry about all of this. But why were you even in the vicinity? Ram, I was busy investigating the rich man who'd looked after the singer. I got an urgent message from Rem while I was working on it, meaning I had to round off the investigation. Though, as I'd been expecting, these people in the white outfits are the White Dragon Scales. Ram stepped over to where Subaru and Liliana were. She gazed at the men's back who were busy at work, before letting out a snort. Ram, the rich man in question died from an illness a few days ago. It seemed to me like he'd earned a lot of people's grudges during his life, so his mansion and assets ended up being seized afterwards. That's where his involvement with the White Dragon Scales comes from. This cave is more or less a hiding place, which he came to a bunch before his death, Subaru, and the treasure he hid away, that probably wouldn't have been taken from him before his death, is about to be recovered now by the very companions who he double-crossed ages ago. Subaru pieced together the information Ram had given him, gaining a pretty good idea of what was going on. Having heard that, Ram also seemed to come to the same conclusion. She looked towards the men at work, and said, Ram, they probably have some mitigating circumstances, but the actions of the White Dragon Scales are in direct defiance of our Lord Roswaal Summer. They all need to be severely punished. Subaru, well, wait a second, that's natural of course, but before that, listen to what I have to say. Ram, besides, it's not just the safety of you two that I have to confirm. Ram passed down her merciless verdict as Subaru sought for a temporary reprieve. However, she jabbed her finger at Subaru's face as he tried to stop her. Ram, there are two assets that haven't been recovered from the dead man's mansion. The first one of those is a meteor, which he went out of his way to procure for a large amount of money. It's apparently some kind of door or wall. Subaru, that one's over there. No one's paying any attention to it, since we couldn't get it open. Ram, well, all right then. The other thing is something that the dead man also procured during his lifetime, but this one will be far more troublesome if we don't find it. Subaru, troublesome? Ram gave a curt nod in reply to his words. There was a small silence before she answered him, and just as she did, a roar shook the cave, causing the men who were working up ahead to scream. Dust filled the air as the sound of part of the wall crumbling rang out. The terrain in front of them changed. Subaru gulped, body stiffening at the abrupt change in the situation. He could see a stocky arm in his vision covered in thick black hair, whittling away at the rock face. Ram, I did say the other one was troublesome. Next to him, still looking apathetic as ever, Ram spoke those words with a trace of exasperation. Ram, a witch beast which the dead man procured from the black market, known as the sturdy ape. Louder, was unaccounted for. You see, the louder's roar sounded like the noise an 18-wheeler's exhaust would make. At least, that's what Subaru thought. The witch beast's appearance was quite close to that of an ape, as the name sturdy ape implied. Nevertheless, it was large enough to completely fill the path in the cave, with its arms being about as thick as Subaru's torso. The difference in strength between them was such that his arms and legs would probably end up dislocated if the louder were even to pick him up gently. Unshaven man, fall back, fall back, fall back. The unshaven man took the situation in and ordered an immediate retreat. The louder let out a roar as it tried to chase after the men in white, who were fleeing for their lives with nary a glance behind them. However, the louder's giant body was stuck in the passageway, rendering it unable to move as it desired. Subaru, though, this is gonna get real bad if it makes it out to somewhere wide enough where it won't get stuck. Ram, we can say the old geezer's a treasurer that keeps guard over his assets, even in death. I just can't believe that a treasurer who betrayed his companions would go as far as using a meteor and a witch beast to try and protect his assets. What an utter good for nothing. Subaru, this isn't the time to talk about it. We need to get the hell out of here. Ram spat those words with a bored look on her face. Subaru grabbed her by the arm, as they both stood before the fleeing men, preparing to flee with her. But, before he could scamper away, he realized something. Subaru. Where did Liliana go? She'd been right beside him until a moment ago, and now she was nowhere to be seen. Maybe she'd ran out of the cave ahead of everyone else? He probably wouldn't have bothered to stop in his tracks if he thought she was cold-hearted enough to act like that. Subaru, that dumbass. Why did she go there of all places? Subaru scanned the inside of the cave and found Liliana, placing his hands over his head in exasperation. As the roars resounded throughout the cave, Liliana was scampering towards the passageway where the louder was still thrashing about, rushing over to where the men in white had left their cart. Deafening roars, and chunks of rock flying about everywhere. In the midst of this fatal flurry, Liliana stuck her head into the cart in frantic search for something. Subaru, Ram. Follow me. The moment he realized what was happening, Subaru threw away his hesitation, broke into a sprint and raced towards the cart Liliana was in. Right before his eyes, the louder was twisting its massive body, looking like it was going to wrench itself free from the passageway at any moment. What was Liliana even preoccupied with at a moment like this? Subaru, Liliana, you fucking dumbass. Do you have a death wish? We need to get the hell out of here. Liliana, my Lilia's gone. Without it, I'm Subaru, the brand new one, yeah? I'll talk to Roswaal after we're rescued. For now, we need to prioritize getting away from here. Liliana, it's not the Lilia itself, it's the case. I got that case from my mother. Subaru resisted the urge to click his tongue at her after hearing her grief-stricken wail. He ran his eyes across the cart, however, neither he, with eyes wide as plates, nor Liliana, who was turning the place upside down, could find the familiar Lilia's case. Despite her Lilia having definitely been brought into the cart after they'd been captured. Unshaven man, what are you two doing there? The unshaven man caught sight of them as he fled. Subaru turned around to look at him, seeing the impatient look on his face, he pointed at Liliana. Subaru, where's her instrument gone? You put it in its case and brought it along, right? Unshaven man, her instrument. Oh. If you're talking about that, then, the unshaven man's face went pale as he looked around, while the louder thrashed about close by. His gaze was pointed at the meteor rather than the tunnel. Subaru instantly understood what he meant. The Lilia had been brought to where the meteor stood, in preparation for Liliana eventually giving in and singing. That's why it was still there. Subaru, this is really bad, for fuck's sake. Liliana, get away from here. I'll go grab your Lilia. Liliana, wah. Wait, Mr. Maid. It's mine, so I'll. Subaru, listen up, you goddamned idiot. I'm going to get it. Meanwhile, you're going to get away from here. Also, my name is Natsuki Subaru. Being called stuff like Mr. Maid all the time was really getting on his nerves. Subaru picked Liliana up against her will and tossed her over to the unshaven man, who'd come rushing towards them. Subaru pointed to the outside as the man panicky took her, before running towards the back of the cave. The Lauda had now pulled half of its body free, wedged right by the passageway he was heading to. It wildly swung its arm out towards him. Subaru, why do I always have to keep drawing the short straw? He regretted his stubbornness. He rued how he'd put up a front. After all, the girl he actually wanted to show off to wasn't even here. And yet, here he was again risking his life. The Lauda's stocky fingers scraped off the rock face as it tried to dig them into Subaru. He just barely managed to avoid them, sliding right in front of the meteor while dodging fist-sized chunks of rock. Subaru, there it is. The Liliana was right in front of his eyes. The meteor was still standing in the crumbling cave, without even a blemish on it. The Liliana, which was now right beneath him, had also escaped from harm. He felt relieved that he hadn't ended up wasting his effort. He picked the case up and turned around without wasting a moment, ready to escape. Louder, dash. Subaru's knees quickly gave way, causing him to stumble down to the floor. And that just barely saved his life. The Lauda swiped its arm out, grazing the air above him, before then smashing into the meteor behind. The force of the impact was reflected back at it, giving rise to the Lauda's screams of agony as they echoed throughout the cave. The roars crashing against his eardrums kicked him back to alertness. He got his trembling knees in check, and darted headfirst down between the Lauda's legs, grazing its wiry hair, yet escaping from the dead end he was in. Subaru, Boer? Its long tail hit the side of his face the very moment he'd thought he'd managed to avoid its massive body. He flew over, groaning in pain as his body crashed against the rocky ground. The case he was holding in his arms was still safe. I'm such an idiot, he thought to himself. Subaru, this sort of thing really isn't worth trading your life for. What really depressed him was how he was being so desperate to protect someone else's memories. Stifling a curse, he spat out the blood that had pooled in his mouth. The blow had split the inside of his lip quite badly. Though the pain he felt was sharp, it did make his awareness keener. Ram, El Fula. The Lauda's tail had been about to strike him again from the front, however, a blade of wind severed it at its root. With darkish blood flying about everywhere, Subaru broke into a sprint, affording himself only a sidelong glance at the tail that was thrashing about like a snake. That magic just now must have been back up from Ram. He could see that both the unshaven man and Liliana had reached the exit of the cave as well. So long as he made it there, the clear conditions for this place would be met, or so he hoped. Subaru, you're really getting on my nerves. Even with its tail cut off, the enraged Lauda stood in front of Subaru, blocking his way. The witch beast had smashed up the narrow passageway, finally setting itself free. Now it stood ready for battle, swinging its arms and legs about. Its massive body, when standing upright, was about 3 meters tall, to the point that its head scraped against the cave ceiling. Even with Ram backing him up with magic, how much could someone like him really last? While keeping a firm hold on the Liliana case, Subaru contemplated on whether he should use his trump card magic. He could send the witch beast's senses haywire with Shamak and gamble on Ram coming to pick him up, while unconscious. The odds were really against him, but there was at least more hope in it than letting this devolve to a fist fight, where his chances of winning would be 0. Subaru turned to look at Ram over by the cave exit so he could tell her about his plan. She met his gaze, dead on before swinging her arm, her blue hair swaying about. Subaru, huh? Her spiked flail, carried by its centrifugal force, smashed into the side of the witch beast's face while turning at breakneck speeds. The Lauda's attention had been fixed on Subaru, so it was completely defenseless against the powerful blow that angled in from behind. That single blow caused half of its head to burst open. Tons of blood was pouring out from all of its facial organs. It looked back feebly and let out a small whimper, as if it were asking, "What killed me?" My apologies, a silver bell-like voice came in response to the witchbeast's last throes, leaving behind an ethereal echo. A blue-white glow filled the cave. Subaru could see a silver-haired girl, with both of her arms held up, and hovering above the palm of her hand was a tiny little cat, wagging his long tail. Sleep tight, Mr. Monkey. Have a nice, quiet journey. The cat gave its farewells in a neutral tone of voice. And straight after that, the blue-white glow became a myriad icicles, revolving in midair. They shot out from everywhere and rushed towards the stockstill. Louder, the missiles of ice pierced the Lauda's entire body. It looked up at the ceiling and opened its mouth wide, trying to let out its final, dying throw, and like that, surrounded by the crackling sound of air, its body turned into a sculpture of ice. Everyone, for a few seconds, the cold air inside the cave was ruled completely by silence. Without really comprehending what had happened in front of him, Subaru looked up at the frozen remains of the witch beast. The Lauda had met its end encased within the ice, and thanks to that, his own life had been spared. Subaru, stunned, and wondering what had just happened, Subaru looked up as he heard his name being called. He turned over to where the voice was coming from. Waving her hand at him was a familiar, good-looking girl, Emilia. She lowered her brows in relief, a gentle smile appearing on her face as she placed her free hand on her chest. Subaru-kun. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'll get you patched up immediately. Then, hurtling down through the treacherous terrain of the cave came Rem, her short skirt billowing. He could see her familiar email de guerre hanging down from her hand, and finally, he understood everything. It looked like Emilia and Rem had come to his rescue at the perfect time. Subaru, how opportunistic again. This time around, however, their opportunism had saved him. Subaru dragged his aching body along, making his own way over to the onrushing Rem. It was just as he did that cracks began to form down at his feet, along the walls, and up on the ceiling. They grew wider as the rocky wall began to crumble down. Seeing this, Subaru pointed at the exit as he felt the hairs on his body stand on end. Subaru, get out of here quickly, all of you. Several seconds later, the cave with the treasure in it collapsed completely.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 17.
We were super worried after Subaru and Liliana went missing, but that man boasted he knew where Liliana had been taken to. With a wry smile on her face, Emilia pointed over at the young man who was spinning around on the spot. Liliana's stalker, Kiritaka, should have been tied up. Yet here he was getting onto his knees and handing Liliana a bouquet of flowers that he'd pulled out from somewhere. Kiritaka, I'm a slave to this love. I would come rushing for you, love of mine, whether it be, or hell and high water, or caves full of witch beasts. Oh, but above all else, I'm glad you're safe, Liliana. But you didn't even come inside the cave. No, Kiritaka, GNNH. That's because that lady tied me up outside. Kiritaka dejectedly spluttered his excuses as Liliana looked at him in disdain. They had never expected that his presence would have ended up playing a part in resolving this commotion. Rem, it seems like the hair bobble he gave Liliana Summer was a meteor that came as a set of two. Apparently, so long as each of them holds one, it has the ability to tell you where the other is, no matter how far apart they are. Subaru, so you mean like a homing device? I guess that's like the very epitome of a stalker nature. The people who'd been rescued, however, found that clingy love affair to be quite gross. Emilia and the others had quickly begun searching for Subaru and Liliana, immediately after they'd been kidnapped. But it was with Kiritaka's assistance, and Ram's presence as she conducted her own investigation, that they'd found a break in the deadlock. Kiritaka's meteor, along with Ram, who'd anticipated the situation, were able to work hand in hand. The two of them had found the others in their awful predicament just as they'd arrived at the cave. Roswaal Summer has stated that he's willing to let him off the hook this time. Though, he's made it clear that he's not to rope up others in his wooing from now on. It wouldn't be advisable for him to force his feelings onto other people. Subaru, well, as much as it pains me to say, he did save our life, though I ain't gonna thank him for it. Rem had been healing Subaru's body, and now, she nestled closer to him. Still, since she was so close to him, and ever so soft, he couldn't really concentrate on his treatment. Emilia, but the problem we have now is regarding those people, right? Standing next to Subaru, who had an awkward smile on his face thanks to Rem trying to cuddle with him, Emilia turned to look at the collapsed cave. There she could see the figures of the utterly crestfallen men garbed in white. The cave was completely filled with rock and earth, making it impossible for them to take the treasure to the outside. Although the collapse had been caused by the louder, the results would have probably been the same if they'd turned off the meteor. Rather, without Subaru and the others, the white dragon scales wouldn't have been able to defeat the witch beast. They would have likely been wiped out in the worst-case scenario. They should at least be glad that they came away with their lives, Subaru, but that's just how things are. It's hard for them to admit they're satisfied with only coming away with their lives. The unshaven man had stammered out the reasons why the white dragon scales coveted the treasure to Subaru and the others. An endemic disease had broken out several years ago where they'd been born, with the contamination in the soil being pinned as the cause behind it. They needed a lot of money to mend the soil. The endemic disease was a strange kind, in which the bodies of people afflicted by it would gradually turn into something like stone, until finally, completely turning into actual stone. It was a diabolical endemic that occurred in lands defiled by a certain witch beast, Emilia, the after-effects of the black snake spreading its pestilence. Subaru felt a similar gut-wrenching feeling as to Emilia's frustrated mutter. There was no way to fix endemic diseases originating from witch beasts except for cleansing the contaminated soil. To do that, they needed a ton of colorless magic ore, as well as the funds for them. But those funds had been snatched away from them, due to that one man's betrayal, and so their final hope lay crushed beneath those rocks. The men's families were back in their homeland. That was why the youth was so frustrated, and the glazed look in the eyes of the unshaven man too, was still pointed towards the family he'd lost, but it was already too late. All hope was lost, and with it, so would be their homeland, Kiritaka. So, how about this? I'll employ everyone from the White Dragon Scales. As for the contaminated soil in their homeland, the Muse Company shall take care of all the funds and materials required. Subaru, wah? Raising his voice in disbelief, Subaru was flabbergasted to hear this unlikely suggestion coming from the most unlikely person here. Likewise, Emilia, Rem and all the members of the White Dragon Scales opened their mouths in shock. Then, after making that surprising suggestion, Kiritaka spun round on the spot and looked up at the heavens above. Kiritaka, luckily, the main product of my family-run Muse Company is magic ore. The colorless kind is fairly expensive, but it isn't difficult to get them in bulk. That, and merchants are always in need of swords to protect their wealth. I reckon this will be full of benefits for both parties. Subaru, do you plan on taking all the credit for yourself? Kiritaka, it's in a man's true spirit to live up to the pleas of the woman he loves. But not only that, there's so much to sympathize in their plight. It's, how do they say it, one good turn deserves another. His adage was similar to one that went like, the good you do for others, is good you do yourself. Speaking like helping people was only natural for him, Kiritaka now looked like a messiah. When they'd first met him, he'd only looked like a huge dumbass blinded by love. Actually, no, once a fool, always a fool. Even so, there was something as well that bothered him about what Kiritaka had said. Subaru, did you really ask him that? Liliana, I did. After all, I was the one who turned them down and wouldn't listen to the situation they were in. Liliana cast her eyes down and said that in a quiet voice as she clutched her Liliana case. She had flat out refused the men's frantic, threatening demands both back in the cart and in the cave, though, if she was blaming herself for that, then Subaru was equally guilty too. Besides, the witch beast would have still been something they couldn't avoid, even if Liliana had sung to switch the meteor off. The same applied for the cave-in as well. Liliana, Mr. Ma, I've just realized that as a bard I've always thought that I was meant to travel the world alone, and live alone while singing through it, before dying alone. But it really isn't like that. People hear my songs where I go, and feel something from them. That effect isn't something that just blinks out and dies. The world is telling me that it's not going to leave me behind. Subaru, are you regretting not dropping your pride for a bit? Liliana, I'm regretting not realizing the importance of things other than pride. Liliana looked up at Subaru's question. There was a beam on her face. She showed him her lyre, poised between her arms as she stroked its case. Liliana, thank you so much for grabbing my lyre. Subaru, yeah, you owe me one. Liliana, for sure. If there's anything I can do to thank you, then. Subaru gave it some thought and said right as Liliana looked up at him, she had to pay the price for him protecting her cherished item with his life. The demand he made needed to have the same weight to it, and thus, Subaru had decided what he wanted. Subaru, sing for me, Liliana. Liliana, huh? Subaru, I'm knackered, yet we're all alive despite thinking we were gonna die, so most of our problems are solved, practically. Meaning we need to roll the credits for the grand finale. And those typically come with a song. Liliana, my inspiration is flashing. Listen if you please, the day you hit your head was the last normal day of your life. Subaru, shut up. She'd implicitly pointed out that what he'd proposed was strange, though Subaru was already fully aware of it. The price he was demanding for risking his life was for her to sing. It seemed absurd, and it probably, definitely was. Yet, that was okay with him. Liliana, then I shall sing. A sky transcending dawn, she strummed at the strings of her lyre as the morning sun peering over the mountains welcomed a new day, a series of high notes. What she was playing was a soul-stirring melody. The prelude blended in with the chilly morning air, drawing the audience's gazes towards the singer as they plunged into the start of the fantasia. Then, Liliana, her voice rang out all the way to the faraway sky. A raucous, new morning came, pushing the night away as her voice and melody went out to greet it. The birds sang back in response to her song, and even the blowing wind joined the ensemble. The next thing Subaru knew, tears were trickling down his eyes, unable to contain the emotion welling inside him. The same was the case for Emilia, Rem and the squirming Kiritaka, the members of the White Dragon Scales, who'd previously dismissed her song as merely a means to pry open the meteor, were also moved to tears by the sound of it. Serves them right. Subaru was sure they would have understood what he meant. Liliana, her song was ideal for an end to this absurd story, so full of coincidence to the point of absurdity. As for whether the warm tears trickling down his cheeks, and his quivering heart, were a just recompense for staking his life, there was no need for him to ask something like that to anyone.
Heroic Tales from Zero, Part 18.
Subaru, are you really going to go to where Kiritaka's from with those guys? Liliana, yeah, I am. It's not like the debts the White Dragon Scales owe have nothing to do with me. At the very least, I'd like to stay with them until I have a clear idea when their debts are going to be done being paid. It was 2 days after the series of commotions had ended. Liliana had finished her packing and now said that in a cheerful tone. Despite their many attempts at dissuading her, she had never caved to their firm persuasions. Liliana had been the one to suggest Kiritaka to hire the White Dragon Scales, so she insisted she had an obligation to see them through. No one could change her stubborn mind. Subaru, well, I guess that Kiritaka guy is gonna be over the moon, and it should mean you won't be getting exposed to danger anymore. Though I don't know what this'll mean for your innocence. You'd better get Sir Beardy to protect you. Liliana, I shall do. You have to be prepared for anything when you're standing by a starving beast. And, besides, it seems like everyone in the White Dragon Scales has become captivated by my song. As Liliana, who was clapping her hands in high spirits, had said, the men in white clothing had become whipped by her singing. It was pretty clear that the recital she'd given them outside the cave had really touched their hearts. She'd also been incredibly influential on getting them the funding required to save their homeland. To them, she was practically a goddess of salvation. Since then, they'd been treating her with the utmost respect. Emilia, that's really too bad. You can come back anytime. All right, Liliana. Yeah, gotcha. I appreciate everything you've done for me, Emilia Summer, and everyone else too. When we see each other again, I'll definitely have a new song prepared. I'm also gonna be looking forward to all the new sweets and stuff. Tee hee hee. Subaru, can't you keep acting like a heroine for at least 10 more minutes? Subaru butted into the conversation in awe as Liliana drooled with a vulgar smile plastered on her face. Several of those who were loath to part with Liliana had gathered here, in front of the mansion. Emilia and Rem especially loved her songs, so they were feeling quite downcast at the prospects of having to say goodbye to her. Even Beatrice had come out of the mansion to give her a short sending off, much to their surprise. Liliana had only stayed for a few days, but those few days had been fantastic, albeit clamorous. It had gotten to the point where it looked like they'd really miss her, when they realized they wouldn't be hearing her singing tomorrow. Subaru, anyways, it seems like Roswaal's aims were a little off the mark. Since we can't keep Liliana around, it'll mean that Operation Emilia Tan's propaganda ambassador goes back to the drawing board. Although Roswaal's forecasts being off once in a while was definitely something to gloat about, it was also a little unfortunate that he wouldn't be able to hear a eulogy about Emilia from Liliana. No, maybe, not just a little. As Subaru wallowed in regret, Liliana waved her hand over to him and said, "Why, you got a mo?" Subaru, what's up? Biko wanted to tell you one last thing, but she couldn't get the words out. She's getting fidgety, so maybe you ought to help her out. Liliana, I will of course, but I've got something quick to tell you first. Setting the fidgeting Beatrice aside for a bit, Liliana stood on her tippy toes and brought her lips close to Subaru's ear. Liliana, actually, I heard this straight from the esteemed Margrave himself. Emilia Summer is going to be challenging the grand stage that is the royal selection in the future, or something like that. That's why I was taken in, right, Subaru, oh. So you knew all along? Well, yeah, you're right. Are you insinuating something? Liliana gave her flat chest a pat, faced with the shrewd preparations Roswaal had set. Liliana, no. It would be my privilege to accept, of course. The beauty and nobility of Emilia Summer's character goes without saying. And above all, how can I not sing when gazing at the figure that is the esteemed Great Spirit? Subaru, that cat spirit is what makes it for you? Isn't he just a plain old cat who likes to take naps and stuff? He didn't really get the subtleties for why he was her deciding factor, but the most important thing was that Liliana was going to accept her duty. He looked forward to the day where he'd be able to hear her play a new heroic tale, sometime in the future. Subaru, so, until that time comes, I guess this is goodbye for a while. Liliana, indeed. Please, look forward to it. I'm going to sing you the best song ever. Liliana patted her lyre case and pledged to undertake that, with a look of confidence etched on her face. It was a thing of splendor that she could be so forthright towards her goals. Liliana, also, just as he'd thought their conversation would end neatly there, Liliana looked at him with a flush in her cheeks. He could feel her excitement coming from the earnest look in her upturned eyes. Then, after a brief hesitation, she spoke up. Liliana, please let me sing your heroic tale sometime. Natsuki Subaru Summer. Subaru, Liliana, please forgive me for laughing it off when I first heard it. Rem-san was right. You will become a hero someday. Liliana flashed a grin at Subaru, whose breath had caught for the time being. Then she turned her back to him in embarrassment and jogged away. Subaru gazed at her back as she began to exchange her goodbyes with Beatrice, before finally letting his breath out again. Emilia, what's the matter, Subaru? Your face is growing super red. Emilia suddenly came over next to him and said that with a glance to his face. Subaru felt his own cheeks in a panic. His face was still quite flushed, causing him to shake his head in irritation. Subaru, gah. Emilia, hee, you're so peculiar. Emilia brought her hand to her lips and let out a small chuckle as Subaru raised his voice, unable to control himself. They were standing side by side, grinning at each other. These two would be, one day, sung about by the songstress Liliana. At this time today though, they were still just Natsuki Subaru and Emilia.